Muito bom dia, pessoal. Sejam todos bem-vindos. Hoje é mais uma transmissão histórica aqui no nosso canal UPTV. Hoje, 13 de outubro de 2023, sexta-feira, 13, 10h16 da manhã, no horário de Brasília. Faltando aí menos, então, de praticamente uma hora. Estamos então aí no Centro Espacial Kennedy, na Flórida, no complexo de lançamento número 39A. Então vamos acompanhar aí o lançamento então do Falcon Heavy aí para a missão Pysche.
Find out more about the origins of our planet and more about that metal asteroid Psyche. So far, we've had a weather brief that just concluded a few minutes ago. And we heard from the launch weather officer, Arlena Moses, that the weather has improved to 85%.
Estamos então aí com a previsão então para o lançamento de 85% então de chance de ocorrer o lançamento no dia de hoje.
Said that the storms that were expected to be in the area moved to the south. And so we have
estamos então aí faltando uma hora para o lançamento. Lembrando que o nosso lançamento então está programado para acontecer às 11h19 no horário de Brasília.
Just recently there was a report on the COLAs for this mission, the collision avoidance that every mission has to go through before launching.
Essa missão tem como objetivo de levar a sonda Pysche para o asteroide Pysche, né, que fica entre Marte e Júpiter.
Doing this today, as you said, the range and the launch weather team met and looked at the COLA
Eu também quero registrar aqui, né, que hoje então chegamos à nossa marca de 700 inscritos aqui no nosso canal UPTV, né, lembrando que tem vídeo novo, né, que foi lançado ontem na nossa parte de educação, UPTV Educação.
The team will continue to monitor everything on the rocket, checking things out as they've been doing all morning.
Estamos então aí ao vivo com o nosso
Falcon
Heavy.
Do their pre-poll, looking at all the data for fueling as we're getting ready to come up on starting propellant load. From that aspect, and everything is looking good so far. They have a few more checks they need to do.
Estamos então aguardando o início do abastecimento do veículo.
As we count down to a T0 at 10:19 and 43 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, or 14:19:43 UTC time, the Falcon Heavy, once we start tanking, will then be locked in to that launch time, and that is an instantaneous window. We are awaiting a poll at T-minus 57 minutes, where the NASA launch manager will check with his team and then feed back to the launch director, Mike Taylor, with SpaceX today. Tell us a little bit about that poll.
Yeah, Daryl, we've talked this in previous broadcasts on many missions. You and I have worked together, but you know, launching a rocket is a team sport, and there are many teams working different things from engineering to analysis to spacecraft team to our Space Force partners, and of course our commercial
Lembrando que o Falcon Heavy, então, né, para quem não sabe, são 3 Falcon 9 em um veículo só.
NASA's launch manager Tim Dunn will do his
em
NASA
só,
poll,
né?
which means he will check in with the NASA engineering team and the spacecraft team to make sure they are ready.
Lembrando então que o pouso então, dos dois boosters auxiliares aí do Falcon Heavy, né, serão realizados nas zonas de pouso 1 e 2, e o tempo total aí de duração desta missão até a liberação então da sonda Pysche será aí de 1 hora, 2 minutos e 24 segundos. Estamos então aí no Centro Espacial Kennedy, no complexo de lançamento número 39A.
That it is likely to get a go. We'll begin tanking at T-minus 50 minutes, and that will start with RP1 load. After that, will be followed with a LOX load.
Então aí quando chegarmos na marca de 50 minutos, né, para o lançamento, vamos então iniciar aí o procedimento de abastecimento com o propelente aí dos boosters auxiliares, né, e também no núcleo central, e logo depois aí será feito o abastecimento do oxigênio líquido.
locks in there onto the first stage. What's unique about the Falcon Heavy, Daryl, we've talked this a little bit too, right? You and I, that
lembrando que ontem era para ter também aí junto com o Falcon Heavy, né, com a primeira tentativa do Falcon Heavy, éramos para ter também a caminhada espacial de número 89, né, pelo lado americano, né, mas foi adiado, ainda não temos data para nem a caminhada 89 e nem a caminhada 90, tá? Estamos então no aguardo aí da nova oportunidade para a caminhada espacial. Nós temos então confirmado até o momento a caminhada de número 61 pelo lado russo, né, que será no dia 25.
Overall for SpaceX, the 267th launch, but it is the first launch on a heavy.
E também devido a Falcon Heavy, né, prioridade aí do Falcon Heavy com a missão Pysche, a missão Starlink. Será então aí talvez ainda esta semana ou na próxima semana.
SpaceX on some very important scientific discoveries that we have done with NASA, but this one being a first Heavy for us. The Heavy was required to get Psyche on its way on the trajectory that's needed to get out to the asteroid and provide the performance and power needed to make sure that the mission is a success and that we get all the science that the team is looking for. And this science team has spent a lot of time putting this satellite together, and this is going to be not only great excitement for us on the launch today,
e esta missão do Pysche, né, tem como objetivo então de estudar, compreender melhor aí de como foi a formação do nosso Sistema Solar. Lembrando que esse asteroide Pysche, ele é um asteroide aí metálico, componente aí topo metálico, então aí ele é de suma importância para a gente compreender melhor como é que foi então a formação dos planetas basicamente rochosos, né? Então, faltando menos de 56 minutos para o lançamento, como vocês podem ver aí no cronômetro.
That was also very good news. Both the upper level winds and recovery numbers are all in line, so it looks like a good day. But I would like to now poll the NASA JPL Psyche team for their readiness for propellant load and launch readiness. NASA CE.
NASA CE, go.
SMA.
SMA, go.
SMD.
Estou ajustando aqui o nosso cronômetro
NASA MEM.
para ficar
NASA MEM, go.
menos igual aí.
LSP.
LSPs, go.
In LIM copies, the NASA Psyche team is go for propellant load and launch readiness.
Então, nesse momento foi dado a autorização para o início então do abastecimento do propelente. Então, temos aí boas notícias. Boas notícias aí, então, para amanhã de hoje, né? Então, neste momento foi dada a autorização, então, para o abastecimento do propelente.
So, launch manager, LD, countdown net, confirming government team is ready to proceed with propellant load.
LD, this is NLM. The NASA team is ready for propellant load and continued countdown.
Então, aí foi dada autorização para o início do abastecimento do propelente e a contagem regressiva continua.
SpaceX NASA team is go for propellant load and launch. A reminder, on-aboard instructions. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief CE or LD, and it will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operator shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed to the launch abort auto sequence. Finally, at T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count.
Então, nesse momento aí temos aí então boas notícias, né, de que o abastecimento do Falcon Heavy então vai ser dado o início agora. E a contagem regressiva continua.
As all teams reported go
54 minutos para o lançamento.
Just about 4 minutes from now. Mick, you understand the structure of that poll? Kind of highlight it for us.
Yeah, so NASA's launch manager, Tim Dunn, as I was saying earlier, he confirmed with his NASA engineering team, his safety and mission assurance team, his spacecraft team, and the LSP program team
Estamos então
to
aí
make
com
sure that the
imagens
NASA government team
ao
was ready
vivo
to
aí do
start
complexo de
propellant
lançamento
loading.
número
And then shortly after that,
39A,
we heard Launch Director Mike Taylor
Centro Espacial
confirm
Kennedy,
with the NASA launch
na
manager that the
Flórida,
NASA
nos
government
Estados
team
Unidos.
is
Hoje
ready
então aí com
to proceed into
nosso
propellant
veículo
load and for
Falcon
working no
Heavy,
issues.
levando
Tim
então a
Dunn
sonda
reported there are no
Pysche,
colos for today as we
onde então
talked,
vai
and
estudar aí
everything is
o
looking good. The
asteroide
team is working no
Pysche,
issues at this time, and all systems have checked out nominally up to this point. The automatic
Marte
FPS system
e
checks were
Júpiter.
complete. The hold fire communication checks with the Space Force
Lembrando
were
então que
completed.
esta missão tem
And so
duração
everybody's
até
go. And then Mike
2031.
Taylor briefed his team over the countdown net that they would continue moving forward to get ready for propellant load at T-minus 50 minutes.
Então, de acordo com o cronograma, né, esse lançamento for ainda hoje, né, aí a sua aproximação então com o asteroide deve ser aí entre aproximadamente agosto de 2029 e o encerramento desta missão provavelmente em novembro de 2031.
And the range was good before they start
Então, até o
tanking,
momento aí
once you start
tudo
tanking,
está
now you've
ocorrendo
committed to
de
basically burn a
acordo
day
com o
to try and
cronograma.
get a launch off.
Yeah, we're talking ground storage of LOX. The amount of
Pelo
liquid
horário de Brasília,
oxygen
então,
that
10 horas
the launch
e
complex
29 minutos.
39A has on storage. The tanks are completely full right now,
Estamos então
and
com
with the
transmissão
amount
ao
of liquid
vivo, então
oxygen that
direto
are
do
in the storage
complexo
tanks, we can get
de
2 full launch
lançamento
attempts out
número
of that
39A,
liquid oxygen storage
Centro
tank.
Espacial
Once we start
Kennedy,
tanking the vehicle,
nos
we
Estados
have that
Unidos.
boil off as we see the plume from the vehicle. You see the LOX, the cold
vehicle tanks
liquid
are venting
oxygen,
for the start of propellant load.
Condensing
Então,
and
neste
boiling off
momento
from
se
the
inicia
temperature change between
aí
the
o
Florida air and the
abastecimento
LOX
do
vehicle. And
veículo.
once that starts boiling off, we lose some of that liquid oxygen. So if we were to stand down for today, we would detank the vehicle,
Nesse
put that
momento,
back
então,
in the
o
storage
veículo
tank,
Falcon
and we would
Heavy
have
está
less than we
aí
started
começando o
with. So we
procedimento
have to take that
de
into
abastecimento.
consideration when we get ready for this count, and the team did that here at the go, no-go point, and they are ready to start loading LOX this morning for an attempt.
The good news is, in the past 4 attempts, or the past 4 launches, I should say, of the Falcon Heavy, they launched on either the first or the second day. So it's unlikely that we would get all the way down to a T0 2 days in a row, but in case we do, it's good to know that
Lembrando que o horário do lançamento não está previsto para acontecer às 11 horas e 19 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. E a liberação da sonda deverá acontecer depois de 1 hora e 2 minutos de missão aí do
Yeah, that's
Falcon
correct.
Heavy.
The Psyche window, launch science window, is about that 3-week period, and each day within that
Então, mais uma vez
we
que
have a
os
1-second
auxiliares, né,
opportunity
do
each day
Falcon
to
Heavy
do that. So
vão
that is
fazer o
really
pouso nas
critical for the
zonas de
team to look at
pouso
everything and make sure they're
1
ready
e
to
2.
go when they go into this propellant load so that they can hit that window.
All right, let's listen
Nós
in
vamos aí
as
acompanhar
the launch
todos os
auto
movimentos
sequence is
então do
expected to
Falcon Heavy
start at
de
T-minus
hoje.
50 minutes. We'll sign off for now and leave you with the loops that you'll be hearing throughout the rest of the broadcast.
Menos então de 50 minutos para o lançamento. Dez horas e 30 minutos no horário de Brasília.
The launch auto sequence has started.
Então, nesse momento foi dada então a sequência aí para o abastecimento do veículo. Estamos aí, então iniciando as operações então oficialmente com o abastecimento do veículo. Lembrando então que o Falcon Heavy ele tem 2 combustíveis, né, o propelente e o oxigênio líquido. Ele é composto então por 2 boosters auxiliares, que são os 2 primeiros estágios do Falcon 9, e o núcleo central, aí contendo então o primeiro estágio do Falcon 9, mais o segundo estágio. Então, o nosso veículo, então, ele é um veículo com 2 estágios e 2 auxiliares. E vamos então acompanhar todos os movimentos aqui do Falcon Heavy de pertinho para vocês. Parece que já se iniciou aí a transmissão em conjunto com a NASA. Estamos com a NASA aqui. Deixa eu ver só uma coisinha. O programa especial já começou.
Goddess of the soul.
Beautiful name.
Yeah, so because of that, we named our spacecraft Psyche. And because of that, we named our mission Psyche.
Então, nosso programa especial aí da NASA já iniciou.
All makes sense to me, easy to
Só
remember.
vou ajeitar o nosso cronômetro.
Place that asteroid down. Tell me where
Ficar ali
Psyche
direitinho.
is in relation to us and our solar system.
Right, well, you remember elementary school, right? Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, right? And between Mars and Jupiter is the main asteroid belt. And this asteroid orbits in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter about 3 times as far from the sun as the Earth.
And really quick, a very unique asteroid, obviously, metal rich.
It's metal rich, and it's the largest one of its kind in the entire solar system.
And that's why we're going to
Yes.
Cronômetro ajustado.
And there is a lot to learn about this mission. That's why Jim and I
Então,
aren't
estamos
the
aí
only
ao
ones
vivo,
you'll hear
então,
from
com
today. We have Jasmine
programa
Hopkins here at
em conjunto
Kennedy
com a
Space
NASA,
Center at a
especial
nearby
aí
viewing
com
location.
a
Raquel
Pysche.
Villanueva at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, and Daryl Nail and
vocês
Nick Waltman,
escolhem, né?
who will
Tem
walk
aí
us through the
o
operational milestones today. All right, so guys,
a
SpaceX has been
parte
fueling its
técnica aí só
Falcon
com
Heavy
o Falcon
rocket
Heavy,
for about a couple
né?
of minutes now.
Ou a gente
And the
pode
other watch items,
continuar
of
aí
course,
com o
the weather
programa
today, but we are looking a
especial
lot
aí da
better than
NASA
yesterday.
para entender melhor
We
aí.
certainly are, Megan and Jim,
Physics.
and good morning to you both who are looking lovely in your
Nós
purple
temos
and orange
a
mission
NASA tem uma
colors.
câmera então
Mick and I
especial
here, we're in our gray,
lá no
which was the
plataforma
weather
de lançamento.
yesterday,
Yes.
but you know, great news in terms of the weather for today's launch. It improved to
Estamos aí
85% go.
com
We just heard a weather brief
85%
as she gave that brief to
de
the launch
de
director,
chance
Mike
então de
Taylor of
termos aí
SpaceX,
o
and you can see on
lançamento,
the
né?
graphic there.
Estamos aí
85% go.
com tudo bom
Winds are
aí
light
para
and
o lançamento
variable,
de hoje
5 to 10 miles per hour out of the
do
west.
Falcon Heavy.
Temperature 82 degrees, and of course it's humid. Our only concern, though, Mick, a potential cumulus cloud in the area. We don't have any rain, as you can see on the radar. That's the
Lembrando
best
que o horário
news
de
that we got
lançamento
today.
é às
Yeah,
11
absolutely.
horas
Like Jim,
e
I'm
19
excited this
minutos.
morning. I mean, we started early this morning,
Então,
Daryl. You and I
temos
listening to the
imagens
nets, and
ao vivo aí
the
do
weather has
nosso
only
Falcon
improved over
Heavy.
the last several hours down to this 85% go, and I'm excited for that as we move into launch liftoff this morning. The range team will continue looking at the weather, and along with the engineering team on the launch vehicle. But things are looking really good this morning from a weather standpoint for this mission. I'm very excited.
The other major factor for consideration before launch is the range as you look at a beautiful shot orbiting around the
Lembrando então
launch
mais uma
pad
vez
there
que o
at Launch
Falcon Heavy
Complex
então ele
39A,
contém
the
2
Falcon
auxiliares, né,
Heavy,
2
the
boosters
3
auxiliares
boosters at
e
the
o núcleo
bottom,
central com 2
and the
estágios.
spacecraft Psyche encapsulated at the top. That
E no
range,
topo
as you
temos
can get a
então a
look
nossa
around over
sonda
the Atlantic
Pysche.
Ocean, is green, so we're good to go there. Listen now.
NY, PY, and center core LOX load has started.
Então, nesse
That is
momento
the
aí,
call
o
out for
núcleo
LOX
central
load. So now we
do
were
Falcon Heavy, neste momento, então, se
flowing
inicia esse
RP-1 propellants
o
into
abastecimento então,
the
do
Falcon
núcleo
Heavy
central.
boosters, those 3 boosters at the bottom.
Então,
Now
nesse
we
momento,
are
estão
flowing
os
LOX,
3
which is more of a
boosters,
delicate
então,
operation.
Yeah,
os 2
absolutely.
auxiliares
About 5
e o
minutes ago,
núcleo
we started
central
our
neste
P1
momento.
load, which
Então,
got
estão sendo
the fuel
abastecidos
going into the boosters, and
agora.
now we are putting the cryogenic densified LOX in board. Between the 2 propellants, that will provide all the fuel and energy needed to fire the 27 Merlin engines this morning. So the team is loading the first stage, and about 5 minutes from now, we'll start loading second stage. So things are looking really good, and nominal instrumentation on all the load.
We are counting down to a T0 at 10:19:43
44
a.m. Eastern
minutos
Time,
para o lançamento.
14:19:43 UTC time. It is an instantaneous window now that we've started LOX. Real quickly, Mick.
Yeah, absolutely. We starting this densified locks. It sets our window for this morning because we've committed to that because we have to maintain that cold temperature of the densified locks in the stage. So the team is confident. They've given the go. We've started propellant loading, and we're looking forward to liftoff.
All right. Our next call out will be for propellant load in the second stage of the rocket. That's coming up in just about 10 minutes. But for now, we'll send it back to Megan and Jim.
Wow, what do you think of those live views from the helicopter?
Daryl and Mick are awesome, too. It's great to have these experts.
We're awesome, too. Yeah, it was really great to see those shots, not, of course, of the rocket, but also the weather, 85% go.
It's been our biggest concern, right? The spacecraft is ready, the rocket is ready, the team is ready.
Deixa eu ver se a da Spacex já
Looking good,
começou.
exactly. Now, you heard that call out over the loops about loading liquid oxygen. You're going to hear call out.
Deixa eu dar uma olhadinha. A da SpaceX está na mesma da NASA.
Rocky asteroids, we've never seen a metallic asteroid. There's a big population of them out there. Psyche is the largest one.
Right.
Então, aí faltando menos de 42 minutos e 30 segundos para o lançamento, estamos aí acompanhando todos os movimentos então aí do Falcon Heavy. Então, para a tentativa de lançamento de hoje, para a missão histórica aí da Pysche. Lembrando que já atingimos a nossa marca de 700 inscritos no canal aqui no YouTube, né? Quero agradecer cada inscrição de vocês, né? Sem vocês, o nosso canal não é nada, né? Muito obrigado aí a todos por atingirmos então esta marca de 700 inscritos no canal.
Or DSOC. So, Jim, this is a completely separate technology demonstration.
Então, hoje, dia 13 de outubro de 2023, então estamos aí acompanhando todos então, o movimento do Falcon Heavy, né? Lembrando então que o abastecimento já começou, já estamos então no abastecimento do veículo, né? Nos dos dois estágios, dos dois boosters auxiliares e do núcleo central, então, sendo abastecidos neste momento aí com o propelente.
Yeah, a lot of science packed into one mission. Now, Jim is obviously very knowledgeable. That's why we're inviting you
então, lembrando aí que este é mais um momento histórico aí pela NASA, né? Aí, onde vamos até o asteroide Pysche. Aí acompanhar, estudar aí todo o asteroide, né, que tem o objetivo, então, aí de fazer a compreensão, né, melhor aí de como foi então a formação do nosso Sistema Solar, né? Estamos sempre então em busca de como foi então a estudar melhor, né? Sempre aí a formação do nosso Sistema Solar. Lembrando também que ontem, foi ontem, né? Ontem, foi dia 11, né? Dia 11 então de outubro, né? Tivemos aí então a revelação das amostras que foram coletadas aí pelo Osiris-Rex. Então vamos entender aí um pouquinho da missão da Pysche. Lembrando que ele é um asteroide metálico. Bom dia, amigo Walter. Seja bem-vindo aí à nossa transmissão especial aí com o Falcon Heavy, onde então vamos iniciar aí a nossa jornada até o asteroide metálico Pysche. E também atingimos a nossa marca de 700 inscritos no canal. No canto da tela, aí estamos acompanhando então as imagens do Falcon Heavy. Em inglês é Psyche. Falar corretamente, então, Psyche. E a sonda também tem o mesmo nome do asteroide, né? Psyche. Então aí vamos fazer aí todo o estudo de sua composição, análise, né? E aí vai também aí nos ajudar aí então a entender melhor, né, a formação do nosso sistema solar. Se hoje der tudo certo com o lançamento, né, a aproximação então com o asteroide Psyche deve ocorrer aí por volta de agosto de 2029 e o término da missão em novembro de 2031. E lembrando que amanhã tem eclipse, né? Amanhã tem o nosso eclipse anular solar, né? Que poderá então ser visto no Brasil. Mas amanhã não teremos então transmissão para acompanhar o eclipse, tá? Amanhã não tem transmissão do eclipse.
In that video, feeling like throwing up and excited and dancing all at the same time. Is that how you're feeling right now?
Faltando então aí 37 minutos para o lançamento. E também neste mês, né, vamos acompanhar também a nova tripulação, então com a nova tripulação da China em direção à estação espacial de Tiangong, né, que será aí provavelmente aí quase perto do fim do mês. Estamos então aguardando só a confirmação da tripulação, né, da nova tripulação, que vai então ir até a estação espacial de Tiangong.
Including the imagers. So we'll be taking those shots, putting the mosaics together, getting them out to the public as quickly as we can.
I love that students are also involved.
Yeah.
Okay, T-minus 36 minutes and 12 seconds until liftoff of the Falcon Heavy rocket and Psyche spacecraft.
Temos aí faltando 36 minutos para o lançamento do Falcon Heavy.
For weather and range, which is great news as you look at an orbiting shot there of the launch pad. We're here at Hangar A.
Até o momento então tudo correndo bem aí com o abastecimento do veículo e também com as condições climáticas.
Mick, you did hear something though on the range ops net that suggested that we had a recreational boat not in the box, which is the area of concern when the rocket goes up, but near the box. Nonetheless, they're going to get a visit from a Coast Guard cutter.
Yeah, absolutely. Being here, Launch Complex 39A, right here on the coast of Florida.
Sim, é o pessoal do Space Today, né, essa CAN, então vai transmitir aí o eclipse, né, direto lá de João Pessoa. Vocês podem acompanhar por lá o eclipse.
Big operation as we lead up to the liftoff today, and in just a few seconds we're going to start RP1 load of the second stage. Let's listen in.
Stage 2 RP1 load has started.
Então, nesse momento, o estágio 2 também está iniciando o abastecimento com o propelente. E também podemos já observar ali o abastecimento do oxigênio líquido. Então já podemos observar ali a fumacinha saindo do veículo, né, que é o oxigênio líquido. Então estamos iniciando também o abastecimento com o oxigênio líquido. Lembrando que tem vídeo novo no canal aí na nossa parte UPTV Educação, com cálculo, né, a parte de limites, onde então estamos tratando aí a parte de limites infinitos.
The Falcon Heavy
Estamos então aí com 85% de chance, né, de ter o lançamento hoje, 13 de outubro de 2023. Então aí podemos já observar então o abastecimento do oxigênio líquido.
The fairing will be deployed and Psyche will be out in the environment and ready for
Então lembrando mais uma vez. Então até o momento não temos confirmação ainda pela Spacex de que teremos aí também o lançamento do Starlink, né? Tudo vai depender do lançamento de hoje do Falcon Heavy, né? Se tudo correr bem, né? Se tudo correr bem, né? Se não tivermos Scrub hoje, né? Acredito que não. Mas se não tivermos o Scrub, aí então ainda não temos confirmação pela SpaceX do Starlink de hoje. Né? Que se, tá talvez programado para hoje. Ainda não temos data definida pela SpaceX.
And that's what they're doing here, transitioning to internal power using the battery that's built into the spacecraft. This battery is used until Psyche.
Então temos aí a equipe do Psyche, e todos aí apreensivos e na expectativa para o lançamento. É o tradicional então amendoim, né? E quando então tem o lançamento confirmado com sucesso, né? Tudo ser feito direito aí com sucesso. Então eles comemoram e comendo o amendoim.
Kennedy Space Center in Florida. People from all over the world visit KSC on launch days to be part of such an epic sight. NASA's Jasmine Hopkins is live at one of those viewing areas now. Jasmine.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, we are on the balcony of the Operations Support Building 2 here at Kennedy, where we'll have a great view of the launch over in the distance. And joining us now is the Deputy PI for Psyche, Ben Weiss. Thank you so much for being here.
Super excited to be here.
Of course, I'm sure you are excited. You've worked on this mission for over a decade. So tell us how your journey started at MIT and how that got you here.
So we have a laboratory in which we measure the magnetism of rocks. And back in 2010, we were finding many meteorites, for some reason, were very strongly magnetized. They formed an ancient magnetic field billions of years ago. We were really perplexed, like what could be the origin of this magnetic field? And we were puzzling over this, and one day, Lindy Elkins-Tanton, the future PI of Psyche, was walking by my office, and I asked her, do you have any ideas about what this magnetic field could be? And she's like, I was just teaching a class about this topic right across the hall from me.
Faltando então aí 31 minutos para o lançamento, né? Então mais uma vez então o mundo está agora voltado para aí a NASA, né? O complexo de lançamento número 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy. Então vamos acompanhar aí, estamos acompanhando mais o lançamento então do Falcon Heavy, que vai levar então aí a sonda Psyche até o asteroide com o mesmo nome. Lembrando então que esse asteroide ele fica localizado entre os planetas Marte e Júpiter. Ele então é um asteroide metálico, né? Então por isso que ele foi escolhido aí para ser estudado. O estudo dele também vai nos ajudar a compreender e entender melhor mais a fundo como é que foi então a formação do nosso Sistema Solar. 30 minutos. Menos de 30 minutos para o lançamento.
Now, we just heard from Ben, Psyche's magnetometer lead. Why don't you tell us about what a magnetometer is? Why don't you break that down for us?
Megan, this is not just the host desk. This is the host desk of science. Because we're going to do a little demo here. This is the magnetometer.
Okay. So think of this as this magnet as a magnetometer.
That magnet is the magnetometer. I have 3 rocks here. Okay. This is a rock from my backyard, and these are 2 rocks from space. These are 2 meteorites from the ASU Bucet Center for Meteorite Studies, and I would like you to be the magnetometer.
inscritos agora no canal, né? Faltando aí apenas 300
which is
para
a piece
então
of granite.
chegarmos
It's from my
a
backyard
1000
in
inscritos.
Arizona. Don't just take it for granted. It really is a piece of granite. Yep. Okay, so not magnetic, right?
Okay,
not much
no.
iron in that one.
No.
Now try this one. This is a so-called ordinary chondrite meteorite. It's a little magnetic. It's kind of it's sticking a little bit, has a little bit of iron and nickel in it. It's kind of like the material you'd find. This would be crustal material, crustal and mantle kind of material.
Okay.
Now try that meteorite.
Whoa.
Yes,
Oh my gosh.
right. This is an iron. It's like
there.
massively stuck on there. This is an iron meteorite. This is part of the Canyon Diablo meteorite, which created Meteor Crater in northern Arizona.
Okay.
So you saw how strong that magnetic field is on this one, and so we'll be
Então
using
são
magnetometer on the
amostras de
spacecraft,
meteoro, né, que
to
foram
try to detect
recolhidos
that
aí no
magnetic field.
no Arizona,
Now,
né,
we see
naquela
that strong
cratera
magnetic field. It
que existe no deserto do Arizona,
Psyche is
né,
an
estão
ancient
fazendo
core.
então
Okay,
o
so that's what
teste
we want to do. We
metálico
want to take this magnetometer,
aí com
orbit
o ímã, né?
the asteroid to see
Vocês
if
puderam
there's that
observar.
magnetic field. And so if we discover that, yes, this is likely a planetary core, what does that mean for us?
Well,
what can we learn from
it
that?
gives us an opportunity to study a core of a planet in a way we just can't. We can't go to the Earth's core. We can't study the other planetary cores. But here we can look at this object, which we can get its chemistry. We can look at the kinds of minerals on its surface, its geology, its density, its
Então ele tem como
gravity
objetivo
field,
também de estudar
and
aí
really
toda a parte
understand some
do
details
núcleo,
about
né,
how
do
cores
asteroide,
form and
do
therefore how
Psyche,
planets form.
inclusive aí toda a
Our
composição
planet.
química
Okay, thank
que
you so much for
existe
breaking this
naquele
down. Love the
asteroide.
demo. Managing today's launch is NASA's Launch Services Program based here at KSC. It's responsible for delivering uncrewed spacecraft like weather satellites, telescopes. Many of those end up orbiting the Earth, but Psyche is going to go much farther. NASA's Daryl Nail spoke to an analyst
Estamos
about
aí com
Psyche's
27
unique
minutos
trajectory
e
into
20
deep
segundos
space.
para o lançamento.
Jermaine Oliver, good to see you again.
How you doing?
Well, this is your animation here. You're the LSP trajectory analyst. Show us now what is happening here with the second stage and the Psyche spacecraft on board.
We have the second stage and the launch vehicle.
E agora
together.
vamos
We're
ver aí
going
um
through our
pouquinho da
first burn.
animação,
This
né, de
burn is
como
gonna
será
get us
a
to Park
trajetória
Orbit.
de
From
viagem
Park
do
Orbit, we
Psyche,
will basically loiter there
da
until the
sonda
trajectory
Psyche.
lines up to get us on an outbound cruise to Psyche.
Okay, and so now you're
Né, logo
going
depois
into
então
that
da
Park
sua
orbit, and I
liberação do
noticed the sun
estágio
is moving
2.
around a little bit.
Well, we want to keep the sun about a 90-degree angle, but at the same time, we're doing what we call a barbecue roll, where the spacecraft will just spin to keep the temperature gradient across the spacecraft and the launch vehicle the same. You don't want the sun focusing on one particular area that could potentially damage any instruments or any hardware.
So it is continuing on the velocity vector, which we see here very clearly, and that 90 degrees to the sun. This is a long coast phase.
Yeah, about 45 minutes or so before we actually get into the injection burn.
Is there anything happening during this coast phase?
No, we're just pretty much just going through the barbecue roll, tracking the sun, keeping it 90 degrees away.
We're approaching now southern Africa and crossing that continent, but then getting ready for that second burn.
Right. When we finish crossing over the continent of Africa, then we'll start getting ready to do that injection burn where the vehicle will get into another attitude that will line up with the velocity vector.
And is that why we're seeing it start to
Então
swing
lembrando
back
que
around?
nós, durante o voo do estágio 2 do Falcon Heavy, né,
Now the sun is on
nós
the other
vamos
side
ter
of the
aí
Earth and starting
dois
to get into a
pontos de
shadow.
ignição do estágio
So we'll
2
actually be in darkness here as we approach the northwestern coast of Australia.
antes da liberação então do
But that's not a
Psyche.
concern to us. We still want to maintain the
É,
barbecue
que será
roll,
aí
as
na
you
marca
see.
de
And as you
1
can see
hora,
right now,
2
we can-
minutos.
We're actually lining up to get to that velocity vector. And once we line up with that, we'll perform that injection burn.
All right, we see it now in the dark side of the Earth, starting to point into that velocity vector that you mentioned. And here comes our second burn.
Yes. You're about to see the second burn happen right now. It's about 2.5 minutes. This would inject us into the orbit that we would need to get to Psyche.
Second engine start, number 2. Your animation has a little vibration there as the engine's giving it the go, and then it cuts off.
Yes. And now, after this burn is complete, we will then get ready to go to the separation attitude. So you see the launch vehicle and the spacecraft get into an attitude where when we separate the spacecraft, the launch vehicle can then go into another attitude and perform a burn to get it away from Psyche.
I see it swinging back around, and here you've labeled Psyche separation.
Yes.
This is the moment where the second stage comes off the spacecraft.
Yes. At this time,
Então, mais uma
we
vez,
have
lembrando
separated
que ainda
from
não
Psyche. Psyche
temos
is on its way. The
definição
launch
de
vehicle
data aí
is
para
now
a missão
performing the burn
Starlink,
to
né,
get
que
itself
foi
away from Psyche before we
adiada,
contact.
né, devido
Psyche
à
will be on its way
prioridade
shortly.
Great. We don't want to run into the
desta
second stage
missão
of the spacecraft.
Psyche.
It's got a job to do. And first, it's going out towards Mars.
Yes, it's going to do a Mars flyby to get that gravity assist, to slingshot itself over to the Psyche asteroid.
Help save fuel, get out to its destination. That's all a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Jermaine, thanks for showing us that. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
your
me.
time.
And we have space enthusiasts watching today's launch from around the world, and we have some recorded questions that they've sent in, while some are posting them live to social media. So why don't we get to some of those questions now?
Let's do it.
Don't be nervous. I think you'll get them all.
All right.
So here's the first one.
Hi, I'm Ezra, and I have 2 questions for you. How will you communicate with the spacecraft, and how did you come across Psyche 16? Thank you.
Oh,
wow.
Great first question.
Ezra's awesome. Those are great questions. So we actually communicate with the spacecraft using radio waves. So the spacecraft has a transmitter and a receiver, and it talks to NASA's Deep Space Network radio telescopes, which are around the world, in California, in Spain, in Australia. And these are enormous radio telescopes that can detect even very faint signals, because we're going to be very far away. So we send radio signals back and forth from the ground. We send the signals up, giving the spacecraft the commands what to point at and how to thrust. And then the spacecraft sends its data back down, telemetry, the pictures we're going to take, the data from the magnetometer and the other instruments. So it's all through radio. And his second question, how did we come across Psyche 16? It was discovered by telescopes.
Temos imagens aí do nosso veículo, né, do Falcon Heavy.
Perfect. Can't believe so long ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take another question from social. Do we have a certain hypothesis as to what chemical elements or metals are present in the metal asteroid?
We do. We have a number of hypotheses, because that's what scientists do. We pose hypotheses and then we test them.
Lembrando que ainda não deixou o like aí na nossa transmissão, né? Deixa o like aí na transmissão do nosso canal. E também se inscreva, né? A descrição de vocês aí é muito importante para dar continuidade no nosso trabalho.
Maybe a little bit of silicate rock on the outside.
Estamos então aí com abastecimento já também do oxigênio líquido, né, como vocês podem observar aí com o nosso Falcon Heavy. Faltando aí 22 minutos para o lançamento. Então, os 2 boosters auxiliares e o núcleo central estão nesse momento sendo abastecidos também com oxigênio líquido. Até o momento então está ocorrendo tudo de acordo com o cronograma. E aí temos o nosso diretor da NASA, né, o Bill Nelson. Lembrando que tivemos também no dia 11, né, a revelação então das amostras do asteroide Bennu, né, que foram trazidas então pela cápsula da sonda Osiris-Rex. Temos então no nosso canal, né, o momento que foi então revelado estas amostras, né? And this is just on the outside of the container. We haven't even opened the container yet. It also has carbon. So if you got water and carbon. Então lembrando que as amostras que foram coletadas então pela cápsula, né, da sonda Osiris, foram então revelados aí para nós aí que essas amostras então contêm água e carbono, né, que são elementos essenciais então aí para a composição da vida, né?
And Administrator Nelson, you know, we're also looking at the longevity of a mission like Psyche. It's going to take us about 6 years to get there. So what are the long-term effects of a mission like this?
Well, it's
Então, o estágio 2 está com abastecimento concluído do próprio lente. Sim, mas ele vai passar bem raspando mesmo, né? Não vai ter colisão, né?
But we had to start planning it and building it even several years before this.
Right, exactly. It's great to see that we are here on this day for launch. Thank you so much for joining us, Administrator Nelson.
Lembrando que o abastecimento do estágio 2, né, foi concluído, né, com o próprio lente.
Okay, we're coming up on another major fueling milestone now. Let's check back in with Daryl and Mick.
Faltando então menos de 19 minutos e 30 segundos para o lançamento.
boosters as well as locks, which is the long pole.
Que aqui no nosso canal vocês acompanham também com o áudio da
Flight
transmissão.
operations team and their Airbus H-135 helicopters, which are out there for security purposes, and they have a camera on board, thankfully for us. You can see the LOX clouds surrounding the rocket, which it's quite a humid day here in Florida today, Mick, so it really stands out dramatically.
Então podemos observar que temos bastante nuvens ali na região então da Flórida, ali na região então da plataforma, né, de lançamento, complexo 39A. Mas até o momento então o lançamento ocorre tudo indo bem. Estamos aí com o nosso cronograma indo bem. O que nos preocupa então é essa quantidade de nuvens, né, que está sobre a plataforma de lançamento, mas até o momento, nesse momento estamos iniciando o abastecimento do estágio 2 aí com oxigênio líquido. Quem está chegando agora, estamos acompanhando ao vivo, então, o lançamento do Falcon Heavy para a Missão Psyche, onde então vamos levar a sonda Psyche até o asteroide de mesmo nome, né, Psyche, que fica entre os planetas Marte e Júpiter. Lembrando então que este asteroide foi escolhido, né, por ser justamente ele todo metálico, né, por ser aí um asteroide metálico, né, então nós vamos estudar toda a sua composição, incluindo o seu núcleo. O horário do lançamento está previsto para acontecer às 11 horas e 19 minutos. Então, o abastecimento do veículo segue aí tranquilo, né? Estamos já com o abastecimento concluído do propelente no estágio 2 e também foi iniciado o abastecimento do oxigênio líquido no estágio 2. Menos de 16 minutos e 50 segundos para o lançamento. Quem ainda não deixou o like na transmissão do nosso canal, né? Deixa o like, né? Cada like de vocês ajuda bastante aí para que mais pessoas possam vir acompanhar aqui a nossa transmissão e também deixa aí a sua inscrição, né? Nós completamos, então, hoje a nossa marca de 700 inscritos aqui no canal. That's something like 33 hours long, and really start to characterize it. Get to know the place. Hey, look, we're here. Let's get to know the place, right? E lembrando que aqui também no nosso canal vocês acompanham também as caminhadas espaciais, né, que ocorrem na Estação Espacial Internacional. Éramos para ter então a caminhada que estava programada para ontem, né, dia 12, né, mas foi adiada e com isso também adiou a caminhada do dia 20. Mas vamos ter a princípio também a caminhada no dia 25 de outubro, né, caminhada pelo lado russo.
Thanks, Megan. I am in the Space Flight Operations Facility here at JPL, which operates the Deep Space Network. It consists of 3 complexes with large radio dishes that let us communicate with spacecraft that go beyond the moon. Now, these 3 complexes are strategically located in California, Spain, and Australia. They provide two-way communication and also help us track and navigate the spacecraft so we can keep them on course.
Então estamos vendo aí as estações, né? Que tem aí a JPL da NASA, né? Na Europa, Califórnia e na Austrália. Onde vamos poder aí acompanhar toda a trajetória então da sonda Psyche após aí a liberação no estágio 2 então do Falcon Heavy, né? Até a sua chegada no asteroide Psyche.
Is NASA's first demonstration of deep space laser communications. Let's bring back NASA's Jasmine Hopkins to learn more.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, joining me now is Jason Mitchell and Trudy Cordes to talk to us more about the deep space optical communications, also known as DSOC. So, Jason, how exactly do these laser communications work?
Well, Jasmine, so just like on Earth, where space users are voracious for data, and so most of that data on Earth is routed through fiber optic cables with lasers, as everybody knows.
E aí temos imagens então da nossa sonda Psyche.
For things like DSOC, except can't tether a spacecraft to a fiber, so you have to do a free space link, and with that there's at least
14 minutos para o lançamento, hein? 14 minutos.
A challenge. You have to point very precisely. Plus, the Earth distorts optical light, right? And so you think about a hot road or the horizon of a hot road on a hot day, right? Like today, and you see that shimmer. And then 3, the signal is so faint, you literally have to count photons. So we have to have these super cooled nanowire detectors that are cooled to just about 1 degree Celsius above absolute zero. But you put that together and we get a capability to deliver data 10 to 100 times faster.
Right, so what we're doing is pretty complex.
Você está assistindo ao canal UPTV, estamos então acompanhando toda a trajetória aí do início, né, da nossa trajetória de viagem aí da sonda Psyche até o asteroide Psyche com lançamento então do Falcon Heavy. Pelo horário de Brasília, 11 horas e 6 minutos. Virou 7 minutos, 11 horas e 7 minutos. Estamos então aí com cobertura especial aí do lançamento do Falcon Heavy.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned to Mars, Jason. You are
Estamos então ao vivo direto do complexo de lançamento número 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos. Lembrando que após o lançamento, então, a liberação da sonda Psyche deve ocorrer aí por volta de 1 hora, 2 minutos e 24 segundos. E nós vamos acompanhar toda essa trajetória. E os estágios, os boosters auxiliares, eles vão fazer então o pouso nas zonas de pouso 1 e 2.
Installed on the Artemis 2 service module yesterday. It looks absolutely beautiful. We're excited about that. We're very grateful to our friends in exploration for, flying that for us to get this to an operational
12 minutos para o lançamento,
Jason knows what we like to say in space tech all the time. What do we say, Jason?
Technology drives exploration.
Bingo, exactly what Jason said.
Awesome. Great things to look forward to in the future, Jason.
Então lembrando que faltam apenas 300 inscritos para a nossa marca de 1000, né, para os primeiros 1000 inscritos no canal. Agora estamos vendo aí um vídeo, né, do momento Artemis. Lembrando que o Artemis, então, está programado para ser lançado em novembro de 2024. Então aí foi um ensaio que foi realizado, né, aí para o lançamento no ano que vem.
You're just joining us. Welcome to live coverage of Psyche. Liftoff aboard a Spacex Falcon Heavy rocket is now just 10 minutes, 13 seconds away. Atop in the payload fairing is the Psyche spacecraft, which weighs just about 6,000 pounds when fueled. That's about as heavy as a large SUV. It's made up of a body and 2 solar arrays
Agora estamos vendo pouquinho mais
and when those solar
da sonda
arrays are
Psyche.
extended, the spacecraft measures about 81 feet, or the size of a tennis court. It will be propelled by solar electric propulsion and will travel about 2.2 billion miles to study the metal-rich asteroid, also
Pois é, não quero nem
Psyche.
imaginar isso aí.
Now, Jim, you are one
Mas
of
até o
the
momento
scientists
o
behind this
cronograma
mission, a
do
mission more than 10
Artemis,
years
né,
in the
tá seguindo
making.
aí
How are you feeling
de
now
acordo
with
com
9 minutes
o
and
programado,
30
né?
seconds to go
Oh
before
my goodness,
launch?
I
Os
have butterflies the
motores,
size of pterodactyls in my
os
stomach
4
right now.
motores já foram
But
instalados
really, I'm thinking about the team.
no
I'm thinking
núcleo
about the
central, né,
hundreds
do
of thousands of
veículo
people around the
SLS, né?
world,
Então,
across the country, around
até o
the world,
momento está indo
who've
tudo
worked so hard to get to
ok.
this point. The
Cronograma
launch is
para
the
o lançamento
focus
então
of
no
a
ano que vem.
big team effort, and I know there's lots of folks out there on pins and needles right now.
Absolutely.
But also, I think we're also just super confident.
Estamos
in
então na
the
contagem
team at
terminal aí
SpaceX, the
para o
team here at
lançamento,
Kennedy,
faltando aí
to get
9
us up there into
minutos.
space and give us a great ride.
Yeah, and this
9
mission
minutos,
could
menos
benefit
de 9
planetary
minutos então
science for
para o
generations.
lançamento
So
do Falcon Heavy.
impactful.
Absolutely. I mean, we won't get to Psyche
Já
till
estamos
early
aí na nossa
2029,
fase
right? So you think
terminal da
about
contagem
a lot of the kids
regressiva.
watching at home today or in school today, they're going to be the researchers who start working with the data in the 2030s
Yeah, wow.
and beyond. And we're going to have that data set coming in for a couple of years and hopefully learn a lot about planetary cores, the Earth's
Lembrando mais uma
core,
vez
how
que amanhã
planets
então
form.
teremos o eclipse anular
I really
solar,
can't wait to see
hein?
what you all
Poderá
uncover.
ser visto
You can't wait
I
either.
can't wait
e
either.
no Brasil,
In your stomach. That must feel awful.
principalmente aí a melhor visualização será nas regiões, serão nas regiões norte e nordeste.
Center core RP1 load is complete.
And there we just heard a call out that the RP1 load is complete, and that's great news. We're continuing to
Então
watch
temos
as this
aí
vehicle
a
is tanked
confirmação
with propellants,
da
2.8
do propelente, né,
million pounds
concluído
of propellants,
então,
both
abastecimento
liquid
do propelente
oxygen
concluído
and
com
refined
sucesso.
kerosene called RP1. We've got a number of things that we are going to be looking at as we count down to the final minutes, Mick, and one of them is chilling the booster engines.
7 minutos e 40
transitioning the
segundos
power
para o
to
lançamento, então
internal,
temos aí o
shore power
abastecimento
on the ground,
do
internal
propelente
to the
já
rocket
aí
and the
sendo
spacecraft.
concluído com
absolutely.
sucesso,
As
tanto
we're
no
tanking
estágio
the launch
2
vehicle, there's also
quanto no
things
núcleo
going on with the
central
spacecraft, and
e
the
nos
spacecraft
boosters
team is working all of their ops,
auxiliares.
transitioning to internal power, getting ready for this morning's launch. And we just heard that they confirmed communication with the spacecraft after a short transition, and we'll verify that they're on internal power here shortly.
Faltando então
But things
7
continue to be
minutos.
phenomenal for this morning's launch attempt.
And we're hearing as we go along updates about when each booster's RP1 is complete. And we will also hear when
Então,
the
nesse momento, o
LOX
núcleo
is complete. We're
central
getting
e
now
o
down to the
booster 1
final
está com o
filling
abastecimento
of the boosters.
concluído do propelente.
Engine chill has started.
Another key milestone is to pre-chill those engines, and that's critical when you're flowing super chilled liquid oxygen into them.
Yeah, we want to make sure all 27 engines are chilled to the right temperature, making sure once we get the chilled down RP1 and the
6
densified
minutos,
liquid
menos de
oxygen
6
in there,
minutos e 40
that,
segundos
things continue
para o
to
lançamento.
work nominal from that aspect.
Até o momento,
So,
então,
the
está tudo
team will
correndo bem
continue
aí
to
com o nosso
top
Falcon Heavy.
off the LOX tanks and get ready for moving into terminal
Lembrando, é
power.
claro, de deixar o
Getting
like
ready
aí na
to
nossa
transition
transmissão
to
e de se
internal
inscrever no
power,
nosso canal, hein?
both for the spacecraft
Estamos
and the
agora na
rocket.
nossa meta
That's
de
coming up in
chegarmos
just
a
20
1000
seconds.
inscritos.
We're watching the boosters as they fill. They are close to getting complete.
Sim,
My
falta muito.
RP1 load is complete.
Another booster down for RP1. Actually 3 now.
Falta muito
so now we
pouco
move
então
to the
para o
filling of the
lançamento do
LOX
Falcon
and the
Heavy.
completion for all 3 first stage boosters.
Okay, and I'm good to run that now.
Falta muito pouco, hein? Menos de 5 minutos e 40 segundos.
Listening in for the switch to internal power.
11 horas e 14 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. E lembrando que vamos ter 2 pontos de ignição do estágio 2 ao longo da sua trajetória. O que me preocupa são essas nuvens aí de chuva na plataforma de lançamento.
The rocket, Falcon Heavy.
Spacecraft is on internal power.
There's the confirmation. The spacecraft is now on internal power. The Psyche spacecraft that you see there encapsulated between those 2 fairing halves.
Vehicle tanks are pressing for Stromback retract.
Então, nesse momento, está sendo iniciado aí o procedimento de recuo do suporte de apoio do Falcon Heavy.
The transporter erector, or strong back as you refer to it, away from the vehicle just prior to launch. We saw a shot there at the fairing.
Então, nesse momento aí, as garras do suporte de apoio do Falcon Heavy serão abertas.
Things are continuing to move pretty quickly here, Daryl, as the team preps for a T0.
Strong back retract has started.
Então, nesse momento, as garras do suporte de apoio do suporte do Falcon Heavy então serão abertas.
The rocket, just about the midsection of the rocket, midway up. We're also waiting for the NLM poll, which is coming up.
Menos de 4 minutos, hein? 4 minutos. Estamos vendo então o recuo do suporte de apoio do Falcon Heavy. Lembrando que o recuo então do suporte de apoio.
NLM countdown net. LD. The NASA Psyche team is go for launch.
Copy, go for launch.
Psyche então foi liberado para o lançamento.
Great news there. The spacecraft team is ready.
A equipe então do Psyche libera então a sonda para o lançamento. 3 minutos e 30 segundos para o lançamento. Nesse momento estamos vendo aí o abastecimento do oxigênio do booster 1 está concluído.
You're going to get quite a show. Boosters 1064 and 1065, which have flown 3 previous missions, 2
3 minutos.
And 1 commercial mission.
O abastecimento então do oxigênio está concluído também para o booster 2.
So look to the sky for that, especially that entry burn and landing burn. They'll make a sonic boom that you can't miss.
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking forward to those 2 boosters coming back. And as we talked earlier, that center core will be expendable. We will use all the propellants for Psyche today. And if you look at the launch vehicle, one of the unique things about that center core being brand new and
11 horas e 17 minutos no horário de Brasília.
Landing legs on that. And that is done by purpose to make sure we get the complete performance out of that
Faltando 2 minutos e 30 segundos para o lançamento.
Darmaine talked about to allow Psyche to perform its mission.
Always good to save some mass when you're flying a rocket to space. And those 2 side boosters, NASA has eyes for them for the Europa Clipper mission.
We do. Actually, the side boosters will be used on a
estágio 2 com abastecimento concluído.
But those side boosters will be used on a Space Force mission later this year and early next year. And then we are looking to use those as our prime side boosters for the Europa Clipper mission in 2024.
And with that call out that stage 2 LOX is complete, the Falcon Heavy is now completely tanked with 2.8 million pounds of propellants. Getting into the final minutes of the countdown now, T-minus 1 minute and 37 seconds.
Então, neste momento, o Falcon Heavy está 100% abastecido.
Gas launch closeouts.
Então, nesse momento, as válvulas de abastecimento estão sendo fechadas. Falcon Heavy 100% abastecido.
Getting down to the final minute now.
Estamos agora entrando na marca do minuto final. Minuto final. Falcon Heavy em startup, ou seja, estamos no modo automático para o lançamento. 50 segundos. Falcon Heavy liberado para o lançamento. 40 segundos.
To deep space.
30 seconds.
30 segundos. Vinte segundos.
15 seconds.
15.
And here we go with the final seconds of launch.
10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
Ignição e lançou Falcon Heavy às 11 horas e 20 minutos no horário de Brasília com a sonda Psyche até o asteroide Pysche. Vamos ouvir.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
View there from the onboard camera on the booster. Beautiful shot there as it goes through the clouds.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Até o momento tudo normal aí com o nosso veículo.
Falcon is supersonic.
Estamos em supersônico, 1 minuto de missão.
Throttling down in preparation for max Q. A moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket.
What will happen here
Max
is
Q.
Max Q. Estamos em Max Q.
Be at full power and the center core will be at a reduced power to
Imagens lindas aí do nosso Falcon Heavy.
Coming up in 30 seconds.
1 minuto e 30 segundos de missão.
We'll start getting ready to have those boosters cut off.
Vehicle's looking good, pitching down range. All
Até o momento tudo ok com o nosso veículo.
So we see a beautiful view of the Falcon Heavy and center core and side boosters there. Data is looking really good.
All 27 engines of the Falcon Heavy putting down 5.1 million pounds of thrust. Standing by now for booster engine cutoff.
Estamos aguardando a liberação dos boosters.
The center core booster will continue on.
Booster engine cutoff.
Então temos aí ele confirmando então a liberação dos boosters 1 e 2 do Falcon Heavy.
Great shot there of the side boosters coming off the rocket.
Na marca de 2 minutos e 30 segundos de missão, então temos a liberação dos boosters 1 e 2.
Stage 2 will
E o
continue
núcleo central então
chilling down,
segue.
making sure the fuel and propellants are flowing through that MVAC, getting ready for ignition.
Those boosters will have 3 burns, 2 re-entry burns and 1 final landing burn before it comes back down at LZ1 and LZ2, landing zone 1 and 2 here
Lembrando então
at the Cape.
que os boosters auxiliares então vão fazer o pouso nas zonas de pouso 1 e 2.
Next up is main engine cutoff
Estamos
of that
acompanhando
center
agora
booster.
o núcleo central. Já estamos aí com 3 minutos e 30
After that
segundos
cuts
de
off,
voo.
there'll be a series of steps that will happen in close succession. Main engine cutoff. The center core stage will separate. And then we'll start
11 horas e 23 minutos
the
no
second
horário
stage
de
burn,
Brasília.
the first of 2 burns today.
There we see a shot inside the that was a shutdown.
Looking
Main
now
engine
inside
cutoff.
the booster.
Miko.
There you have Miko.
Temos
Stage
Miko.
separation confirmed.
Separação com o estágio,
There it goes.
o núcleo central e o
You're looking
estágio
at the second
2.
stage in front of you, lighting up that
Ignição
back.
do estágio 2. Temos a ignição confirmada aí do estágio
Split
2.
screen now on your right-hand side.
Center core FTS is saved. Bermuda.
Calling out the communication stations.
Estamos aí então
What
com
a
a
beautiful
primeira
shot
ignição
there
do estágio
while we had
2.
it of stage 2.
There we continue to look at the side
Fairing
boosters.
separation confirmed.
Boostback has been completed.
Estamos
and
aí
they're
com a
in
separação do
extended coast right
fairing.
now.
And there go the fairings.
Abertura da coifa.
Revealing Psyche to the atmosphere. You can see the fairing falling away back to Earth. SpaceX has their recovery vessel.
Vehicle is on a nominal trajectory.
Their recovery vessel
Até o momento
Bob is
então
out in
tudo
the
ok com o
waters
nosso
right
veículo.
now, looking to recover both of them. getting a good burn now from the second stage.
Estamos aí com 5 minutos de voo já concluído. Estamos aguardando então o pouso dos boosters auxiliares 1 e 2. Estamos acompanhando então ao vivo aí a missão Psyche.
We are going out over the Atlantic Ocean, heading south towards southern Africa. On the right-hand side, you see the glowing engine of the Stage 2. We've got 2 cameras there. On the left, we're tracking those boosters coming back down.
Yeah, we should see in about 20 seconds, we should see the booster entry burn.
Estamos aí completando a marca de 6 minutos.
Boosters.
Estamos então aguardando as imagens do boosters 1 e 2.
But you can see at the center, we're tracking one of those boosters, also tracking the second stage, it looks like right there.
Yeah, all the data so far, telemetry is looking nominal. I see the telemetry chilling down the engines for that booster entry burn on the side boosters, starting up in the telemetry. Everything's looking nominal. The vehicle second stage is performing very well, and side boosters are coming back.
Boosters entry burn startup.
And there we just heard booster entry burn startup is happening.
Então nesse momento aí estamos
seeing the entry burn getting ready to
a
go.
reentrada dos boosters 1 e 2.
Boosters entry burn shutdown.
Reentrada concluída.
Booster entry burn on 1 and shutdown. And there we see booster entry burn on the second side booster and shutdown.
7 minutos e 15 segundos
Next burn
de
is the
missão.
final landing burn. And for
TYNY FTS is saved.
And for folks who are in the area, you end up hearing that loud sonic boom, that thunderclap, just about the time they make landing.
Stage 2 is on a nominal trajectory.
Então estamos vendo aí então os boosters.
Miles away from this landing zone, we certainly hear it and feel it.
Yep, and I see now that the side boosters are supersonic, transitioning to transonic.
And that's a shot of the booster through a thin layer of clouds.
We hear the call out for transonic. Landing burn is started.
Que lindo, que lindo.
Here it comes.
I don't know, Daryl, but that sonic boom was great for us. I'm sure Jim is excited over there. There's the second one. I'm sure the host desk over there is feeling that really well.
E tivemos o pouso confirmado com sucesso às 11 horas e 28 minutos. Tivemos então o pouso dos boosters auxiliares 1 e 2 do Falcon Heavy. E você também pode acompanhar aqui o Sonic Boom dos boosters auxiliares. Só que você tem esse momento magnífico aí dos sons dos veículos.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
Absolutely, we're looking forward to that. And as you look at your screen there are the 2 side boosters on their landing pads, coming down more staggered than I'd seen them before, but nonetheless, perfect landings for them both. And now we will continue to track
então, nesse
this
momento,
right
o estágio 2 segue, então, aí a sua viagem. Estamos em órbita. Estamos em boa órbita aí com o estágio 2.
It will be coasting now for about 45 minutes, and when we come back, we will bring you the moment of separation. In the meantime, we'll send it back to Megan and Jim at the host desk.
And if you're just joining us, welcome live to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we just saw a Falcon Heavy rocket launch off with Psyche.
Só aqui no nosso canal vocês acompanharam o
Speechless.
O
Actually,
Sonic
you
Boom.
weren't speechless during the launch because you were standing next to me and he
Falcon
just kept
Heavy.
on saying, "Go, baby, go!"
Oh, it was so
E agora então o
powerful,
estágio
so
2 do Falcon
incredible.
Heavy, né?
The
Segue
light, the
aí
sound,
onde vamos acompanhar também dentro de 50
I
minutos,
saw the
daqui a
range of
50
emotions,
minutos.
like you were super excited and then you got quiet. You
A
got really
ignição, a
quiet.
segunda ignição do estágio 2 e logo depois a marca de 1 hora, 2 minutos. Teremos então a liberação do
I was getting worried because we saw it in the video. We were like, are we going to feel it here? And all of a sudden, boom, boom.
Yeah. That was very exciting, very
E
exciting.
vocês aqui puderam acompanhar aqui também o momento
landing those boosters, we reuse them for Clipper
do Sonic
next
Boom,
year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything you want to
Heavy,
say to the team, again, as we
que
just
vocês
saw
acompanham
liftoff, you
também
said
com
all that
o
hard
áudio
work, all that time.
da
No, this
transmissão.
is just, it is a team effort, and we're going to be collecting this data set and studying this planetary core for future generations.
Yeah.
Really. It's going to be spectacular data, images, chemical data, magnetic
Depois,
field
quando
data,
terminar então
gravity
esta
data,
transmissão,
and really,
colocar os melhores
we can't study
momentos
the Earth's core any other
para
way. So
vocês.
here's maybe how cores
Então, lembrando que
know
nosso
what's
segundo
happening
ponto
inside
de
our own
ignição
planet.
do estágio 2 do
So the
Falcon
Psyche
Heavy
mission is going to
correrá na marca de
explore the metal-rich
54
asteroid,
minutos.
also named Psyche. And why don't we take a closer
E
look
a
at Psyche
liberação
now?
então do
It was
Psyche,
first discovered in
a marca de
1852.
1 hora,
We don't know
2
exactly
minutos
what
e
the
24
asteroid looks like, but
segundos, né? Nós vamos
scientists have
acompanhar tudo
combined radar and
até o
optical
final para
observations to
vocês.
generate this 3D model you're looking at right now. Shaped like a potato, at its widest length, it's 173 miles. That's about the same as driving from Houston to Austin, Texas. There's evidence of 2 crater-like depressions. It appears to have a significant amount of metal. And a day on Psyche lasts only about 4 Earth hours. So as Psyche's imaging lead, tell me, when can we expect the first photos?
We have to spend, once we complete the deployment, we have to spend many months just checking out the systems, propulsion system,
Vou fazer
communication
então
system,
breve
computer
intervalo,
system,
né? Logo
everything, right?
voltaremos.
Communications. And part of that
E
is
vocês
checking out the
poderão
instruments.
continuar
So I think
acompanhando
the
as
magnetometer
imagens
might get
então
checked out first because they're trying to detect some of Earth's
telemetria agora
magnetic
do
field before
Falcon
we get
Heavy.
too far away.
Aí para
And
vocês
then in
na
the weeks
tela.
after that, we'll be testing out the
Missão
imagers,
Psyche.
taking pictures of stars, calibrating the cameras, getting the geometric correction just right, and getting ready for our eventual flyby of Mars, where we'll get lots of more great pictures as we pass by Mars. And then, of course, we'll start seeing Psyche as we get close to the end of this decade in late 28, early 29. It'll go from that point of light that we can see in telescopes to its own little world.
Yeah, the fact that right now it's so far away, again, orbiting the Earth between Mars and Jupiter, 3 times farther from the sun than Earth is, to be able to study it now up close. That's amazing.
It's very exciting, right? Yeah.
And the fact that we're going so far out to learn more about our home planet, I think that's so fascinating.
It is, and I love the fact that, this is something we're going to share with the whole world, right? It's a point of light in the sky right now, but we're going to see it become a world as it gets bigger and bigger in the windshield as we get closer.
Perfect. Now, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California is managing this mission. I also hear you're managing a very excited crowd right there.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, back here at JPL, there was so much excitement, clapping, cheering, high fives, and just take a live look from inside Von Karman Auditorium. We invited friends and family to come here today and watch the launch together. They're taking some photos right now, and when the launch happened, the whole room started clapping and cheering, and they are wearing their Psyche gear there. So Psyche may be off the ground, but its twin is still here on Earth. It will support testing on the spacecraft's journey to a metal-rich asteroid. Psyche testbed engineer Joan Tubungbanwa joins us now to tell us about it. Thanks for joining us, Joan.
Thanks, Raquel.
So how would you describe Psyche's testing twin?
Yeah, that's a great question. Psyche's testing twin is called the testbed, and it is located at our spacecraft assembly facility here at JPL, which is the same place where we built the Psyche spacecraft. Now, the testbed isn't something that you can just get from the mattress store, nor does it look like the spacecraft or a mattress. In fact, it's hardware that stays here, and if you look at the picture, it's connected by these snake-like wires that is designed to have the same software that the spacecraft is running with, which is also called its brain.
Now, Joan, you are about to start your shift here in the mission support area. What will you be working on?
Yeah, it's a super exciting time right now. The testbed is closely following behind the Psyche spacecraft as it progresses through the launch procedure. My shift begins when we first communicate to the spacecraft since liftoff, and this is done through something called commands. Now, commands are directions that we give to the spacecraft, which we tell it what to do and what kind of information that we need from it. The room will be making sure that the spacecraft is in a safe state, while the testbeds are sending the same commands and simulating the same data that we would get from the spacecraft. If anyone in the team or in the room was curious about a specific command, we would first test it on the testbed to see that we get the expected response.
Lots of work ahead. Now, Joan, you're not saying goodbye just yet. Tell us what's next.
Yeah, so of course I'll be celebrating a successful launch with my family, who's actually in Von Karman Auditorium right now, came all the way from New Jersey. October is also a special month because it is Filipino American History Month, and I was born in the Philippines, and so we'll be putting on an event that highlights both Psyche and our Filipino American team members. And lastly, I'll be following Psyche's journey, making sure that our test beds are operating alongside the spacecraft.
Joan, thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to celebrate with your family. Megan, back to you.
Filipino Joan. And we were happy to host JPL's director here at Kennedy for launch. She's with NASA's Jasmine Hopkins, and they had a great view of liftoff.
Thank you, Megan. That is right. The crowd was so excited here on the balcony to see that beautiful liftoff of the Psyche launch. We're honored to be joined by Lori Leshen, director of JPL. So, Lori, this is a coast-to-coast mission from JPL to Kennedy. How do you feel to be here for launch?
So thrilling, so exciting to see that rocket light. There's nothing like it, and you see it,
do Falcon Heavy, realizado com sucesso às 11h20 pelo horário de Brasília, no complexo de lançamento 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy, nos Estados Unidos, né, na Flórida. E agora, então, o estágio 2 segue viagem aí até a ponto, então, de liberação do Psyche, que será na marca de 1h, 2 minutos e 24 segundos, né? Então, temos aí a equipe do Psyche, né?
That have gone into making Psyche possible at JPL, at all our partners, and I just couldn't be more thrilled to represent them.
Exactly, and it's really like a relay race. You know, today's the beginning with launch, but you guys have 6
já
years
mais
before you
tranquila,
get
né?
to
Toda a
Psyche.
equipe
So
aí já
what's the work being done at JPL?
mais tranquilidade, né? Só aguardando aí então o momento da liberação então da sonda Psyche, será então na marca de 1h, 2 minutos. E dentro da marca de 54 minutos, nós vamos ter então o segundo ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Falcon Heavy. Será ali perto então da oeste da Austrália.
Arizona State University and NASA's Launch Services Program in Florida. Let's meet some of the other people who made this mission possible.
E vamos seguir juntos então acompanhando toda essa trajetória.
feel like for you to be part of this team?
Oh my God, it's such an amazing team, Megan. And you saw some examples there. It's scientists working with engineers, all kinds of engineers, all over mechanical, software, communications, propulsion, power, every
Estamos já com
kind of
20
engineering you can
minutos
imagine.
de
But it's
missão
also
já
we deal with,
concluídas.
we're working with
Está
managers,
assistindo ao canal
administrators,
Will PTV,
communications
hoje estamos com a
experts,
transmissão
educators.
especial com
I
a
mean,
missão
it's
Psyche,
just such an amazing
onde estamos levando a
collection
sonda
of people,
Psyche
a community of
até
people
o
that it takes to
asteroide de
make
mesmo
this
nome, né,
kind of thing
Psyche,
happen. And I know they're
e
all
fica
just super
localizado
excited
entre
right now.
os
And somebody
planetas
said, what
Marte
inspires them? What
e Júpiter.
inspired you to be a
Nós
part
tivemos
of
então o
Psyche
lançamento
and to wanna
realizado
go
com
into this
sucesso
field?
do Falcon Heavy
When I was
às
a
11
kid,
horas e
there
20
were
minutos pelo
astronauts
horário
driving
de
cars on the
Brasília.
moon, on TV.
E
It's like,
estamos aí
I want to do
seguindo
that, and
aí
I've always just been
rumo
hooked
até
on
o
it. Had a
segundo ponto
telescope when
de
I was a kid,
ignição
got
do
to
estágio
measure the
2,
sky, and
a
just
marca
been
de
really fortunate to
54
be able to
minutos.
pursue all this as a career.
Yeah, I can still feel how emotional this is for you. Are you okay? We're back to excited. We're back to excited. All right, it's now been about 20 minutes since launch. Let's go back to JPL and Raquel again for another update on the Psyche spacecraft. And Raquel, the mission support area is working in shifts, yeah?
That's right, Megan. A team switched the spacecraft to internal power, and now that the spacecraft has launched, they'll pass the baton to a new team who will work to make the spacecraft fully operational. Joining us now is Psyche systems engineer Christina Hogstrom, who tested the spacecraft and can tell us what comes next. Good morning, Christina.
Good morning, Raquel.
So tell us what you'll be working on when you take over this workspace.
So right now we're waiting for the launch vehicle to get into position to let go of Psyche. And after that point, we'll be monitoring closely and waiting for that first signal from the spacecraft. Once it separates from the launch vehicle, Psyche is going to autonomously turn on its radios, deploy its solar rays, and then put itself into a slow spin at 1 revolution per hour. And that's to keep the temperatures uniform, which is why we call it rotisserie mode. Once it's in that spin, the antenna that's beaming the signal to Earth is going to be rotating in and out of our view. And so it could be anywhere from a couple minutes to a couple hours before we hear from the spacecraft. But as soon as we do, we'll look at the data, we'll make sure that it's still healthy, and then we'll start talking back to it. We'll command it to stop that spin, keep the antenna pointed at us, and then we will work to get it into its fully operational mode.
And we heard from Joan that there is a testing twin on Earth, but you actually tested the spacecraft itself. What kind of tests did you do?
Oh yeah, we really put the spacecraft through the ringer. I helped to coordinate this test where we put the entire thing in a giant vacuum chamber. We sucked all the air out to simulate deep space. And then for 17 days continuously, we made it super hot, we made it super cold, we made it hot again to make sure that the spacecraft could operate in those extremes of deep space. And then there was another test where we put it on a big table and we shook it to simulate the launch vibrations that it's seeing today. As much as we can over and over, we've checked every wire, we've tested every function on the real spacecraft as long as it's safe for the hardware. Anytime we have a brand new version of the software that's on board the spacecraft controlling it, we always test that in the testing twin first to make sure it works. And then we still prove it out on the real spacecraft. And the whole process is iterative. So we start on the testing twin, we test something, we learn something, we fix it, we test again, and then we move it to the real spacecraft, we learn something, we fix it, and we start the process over. And that's why it takes us years to be absolutely sure that we're ready for today.
Sounds like it is ready for its journey. Now, you've been with the mission for 4 years. What is happening next for you?
Oh my goodness, it is surreal. This is my first flight project and I've just learned so much. I've had the opportunity to have a lot of different kinds of jobs on Psyche, from temperature regulation to fault protection that's like autonomously detecting and correcting for problems. I even helped out with electric propulsion early on, and nowadays I'm on the operations team as kind of a systems generalist. I've seen this thing grow up from designs on paper to a robot that's on its way to space today, and I just am super excited to continue on and fly this thing that we've worked so hard to build. The next 100 days are going to be pretty crazy for the operators. We're going to be checking things out, turning things on for the first time, making sure that everything's going swimmingly. And then we'll have a much more relaxing cruise to the asteroid. And I just can't wait to see what we find when we get there. I'll be on this journey to a metal world every step of the way.
Thank you, Christina. Back to you, Megan.
Now we asked for questions and you've sent them in. Jim,
Yes.
are you ready to answer?
I am ready. Bring them on.
I wasn't ready to say that, but now I'm ready. Okay, so let's play the first question.
I am Paola and I'm from Serrano Elementary
Nesse momento,
School
né, que
in
é do Rio
Moreno
de
Valley,
Janeiro,
California. And my
avisando para
question is,
vocês
how
que
much
chove
time is Psyche gonna
neste
spend
momento na
studying
cidade do Rio de
Psyche
Janeiro.
16?
It's a great question that Paula asks. And so first of all, it's going to take us almost 6 years to get there.
That's right.
So we have to fly by Mars and slowly coast out,
Com
power
isso,
ourselves out
provavelmente,
with those
dependendo
electric
com o
thrusters.
clima, né?
And then when we
Pelo
get
menos
to
aqui no
Psyche,
Rio de
we'll
Janeiro,
start
né,
up high
talvez não será
in this
possível
33-hour orbit,
ver
and we'll
o
spend
eclipse, né,
a little more than
por
2
conta
years, 26
do mau
months,
tempo.
slowly getting closer to the surface and getting higher and higher resolution and map this whole thing and get its chemistry
Lembrando que o
and
eclipse
magnetic field
anular
and all
solar
that kind of stuff.
acontece
So about
amanhã.
26 months.
Awesome, great question, Paola. All right, let's take the
E
second
o
question now.
100%, né, do eclipse poderá ser
How
visto
can
na
an
faixa
asteroid have enough
ali
mass and
das
density to
regiões
support a
norte
molten
e
metallic?
That is
nordeste,
an outstanding question.
né,
And
principalmente
the
ali
answer
na
we think is
região
that
que cobre a
this asteroid
faixa
was part of
entre
something
Natal
much bigger.
e João
And so
Pessoa.
it had more gravity, and with
Poderão
that
ver ali o
gravity comes
eclipse
internal heat,
anular
pressure, internal heat,
perfeitamente.
and it's got radioactive elements inside of it as it was forming, and so it's really hot on the inside, and it can get molten. And we think that the part we're seeing now is just what's left over after maybe a big impact, a grazing impact, knocked off the mantle and crust. We're going to test that hypothesis with the Psyche mission.
Estamos aí
Okay, let's
também
squeeze in one more
acompanhando as
question. This
imagens
is
agora
Andy Zhang on H.
do estágio
How
2 aí
long
do
did it
Falcon
take
Heavy, né, levando
to
a sonda
research and develop
Psyche,
this mission and the Psyche spacecraft?
né, que segue então viagem.
Well, it's better part of 10 years.
Yeah.
É o
We
segundo
saw earlier in the
ponto,
show that it all started with
é
some
o segundo
scribbles on a
ponto então
whiteboard,
de ignição do
and
estágio
folks
2,
thinking
a
ideas
partir de
about how can we
54
learn about
minutos. Estamos
planetary
aí
cores, how can we
estamos
figure out
já
how planets form. We can't
aí na
study
região
Earth's
então do
core.
continente
Hey, let's go visit
africano.
a metallic asteroid that might be the remnants of a core. And
Vocês
so that
podem
idea from
observar.
sort of 10-ish years ago became a proposal, a pitch to NASA in a competition that we won to mount a Discovery class mission. And the spacecraft started getting built. We got selected in 2017, and then
E ontem, né,
about
também
2018
tivemos, no Dia
or
das
19, we
Crianças,
started
né,
building
o
and testing the
anúncio
spacecraft. And here
da
we are in
nova
23,
saga
and
do
it's off
Dragon
the
Ball,
ground.
And you know what? I just
né, como
realized I never
comemoração
said
então do
congratulations to
aniversário
you.
dos 40 anos do anime, né, então nova saga
Okay, great
Dragon
questions, guys.
Ball aí
Keep them coming
estreia
using hashtag AskNASA.
ano que vem,
But right
em
now, I need you all to take out your
2024.
phones or get ready to take a screen grab if you're watching us on your phone. We're going to pull up another QR code for you, and this one will take you to NASA's Eyes on the Solar System page. This is really cool. You can track the Psyche asteroid's current location along with other asteroids and comets in our solar system. And once the Psyche spacecraft is communicating back with us on Earth, then you can also track its location too. Now, the Psyche spacecraft will gather new data that will be studied by researchers around the world, including the curator in charge of the U.S. National Meteorite Collection at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. Take a look.
When I was a little kid, I thought I wanted to be an astronomer.
Sim, pois é, ocorreu o lançamento tudo aí de acordo com o planejado, né? Incluindo também aí o barulho, né, dos boosters auxiliares, né, dos Sonic Booms.
Thank you, Megan. Yes,
Dos
'tis the
boosters
season
1 e
of
2, né,
asteroids.
que
Here to
podemos
talk
aí
us more about
acompanhar
asteroid autumn
aqui
are
ao
Nikki
vivo,
Fox
né, o
and Lori
barulho
Glaze. Thank you for
dos
being here.
boosters
We are so excited.
auxiliares.
So we are in asteroid
30
autumn, but
minutos
no
já de
two missions
missão
are the same.
percorrida
Nikki,
até o
tell us what
momento.
makes
Você está
Psyche
assistindo o
unique.
canal UPTV,
First of all, Psyche
no horário
just
de Brasília, 11 horas e 50 minutos, faltando então 24 minutos
but Psyche is
para o
going
nosso
to a
segundo ponto
metal-rich asteroid.
de ignição do
There are
estágio
only 9
2.
that we know of in our solar system, but Psyche is huge compared to the other ones. It's the size of Massachusetts. So we're going to go
Lembrando então
and
que o
actually
deploy
visit a
Psyche
metal world
ocorrerá na
for
marca
the
de
very
1
first
hora,
time.
2 minutos
We don't know what we're going to
e
find.
24
And that's what's so
segundos.
exciting about NASA science. Every time we launch a mission, we do unique, cutting-edge science, and this one is going to be absolutely no different. We cannot wait.
E agora vamos depender agora só da Spacex, né, para a liberação então da nova, para a divulgação então da nova data aí da missão do Starlink, né, que foi adiado justamente aí por conta da prioridade do Psyche.
Houston 2 days ago on Wednesday. It was absolutely spectacular to be there and share with
Nós estamos aí revendo o momento então do pouso aí da sonda da cápsula do Osiris, né, que ocorreu aí uns dias atrás. E no dia 11, né, tivemos então a revelação aí das amostras, né, para o mundo. Aí, então das amostras que foram recolhidas então pelo Osiris aí do asteroide Ben.
Several months, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more great new data.
Exactly, and we're actually not at the end of asteroid autumn yet. The Lucy mission is about to have a close flyby.
Então podemos aí acompanhar
asteroid encounter since launching in 2021.
toda a viagem do estágio 2 aí do Falcon Heavy.
We're going to be going to an asteroid. It's a little one, so it's very, very different from Bennu, and it's different from Psyche, and we're going to learn.
Segundo ponto de ignição do estágio 2, então deve ocorrer ali sobre o ponto ali da Austrália, né, do oeste da Austrália. E logo depois da sua liberação.
The flybys in there. And I have to just give a shout out to DART. It's also part of asteroid autumn, and we just celebrated that 1-year anniversary of smacking that on the nose. But Laurie is going to tell you why Lucy is so important.
Yeah, so the Lucy mission, as Nikki said, of course, is going to fly by a little asteroid named Dinkinesh, and it's a main belt asteroid. But the real goal of Lucy is, at the end of this decade, is to explore several what we call Trojan asteroids. And they're Trojan because they kind of hide, right? You find the Trojan asteroids leading and trailing Jupiter in its orbit around the sun. Interesting fun fact, those asteroids, even though they're in Jupiter, the orbit that Jupiter's in around the sun is actually closer to Earth than Jupiter. But those asteroids are incredibly important for telling us about the early part of the solar system, where the giant planets were and if they migrated or moved over time. Those asteroids were picked up and held in that gravity field over time. And so the different asteroids we're going to visit will tell us about that history.
Exactly. A lot of great things going on with asteroids right now. Nikki, Lori, thank you so much for being here.
Go Psyche.
Go Psyche.
Of course, go Psyche. Jim and Megan, back to you.
I love to see how excited they are. I also love that we do have this big screen there that's showing you the trajectory again of that second stage with Psyche. Now we are 33 minutes since launch. Once this Psyche spacecraft is on its own, the spacecraft will use solar electric propulsion to move through space. Now that's a super efficient system being used for the first time beyond the moon. First, Psyche's solar arrays will convert sunlight into electricity. That electricity will power the spacecraft's 4 Hall thrusters. Those thrusters will use electromagnetic fields to turn Psyche's propellant xenon into thrust, and that thrust will gently propel it through deep space while emitting that cool blue glow you just saw there on your screen. Now, Jim, when we're talking about gently, it is very gentle. Can you tell us about that?
It is very gentle. How gentle is it? It's so gentle. Hold out your hand.
Okay.
I have 3 quarters here.
All right.
It has about the same amount of force as those quarters.
Feels like nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely
it's like
nothing.
A bag of feathers,
yeah.
right? I mean, it's very, very gentle. So tiny but mighty, right? Because you exert that force over time, just continuously. So instead of just like one big main engine burn. It's just a slow, gentle process with that beautiful blue glow.
Yeah.
And that accelerates us out to like 125,000 miles an hour on our journey out into the solar system.
And that's essentially because even though it's nothing, if there's no atmospheric drag to push it back, it just keeps accelerating.
Exactly.
Interesting. Wow. Now, Maxar Technologies supplied Psyche's 4 Hall thrusters. You can see them there. Engineers estimate that if this mission used traditional chemical thrusters, it would have burned through about 15 times as much propellant. Now, Psyche is carrying 3 science experiments on board. Check out how they'll discover the asteroid's composition without even landing on it. After launch. Jasmine Hoffington's got to speak with NASA's chief scientist, Kate Calvin.
Welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us today. So Psyche is going to take us to a metal world for the first time. What scientific discoveries are we looking forward to?
Então, para o
Psyche asteroid could be the
40 minutos de missão já concluídas até o momento. Você está assistindo ao canal UPTV. Estamos então acompanhando a missão Psyche. Nós não tivemos o lançamento do Falcon Heavy às 11 horas e 20 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. Faltando então aí 14 minutos para o nosso segundo ponto de ignição do estágio 2
It's going to take us a while to get to Psyche, about 6 years. So what are the long-term benefits of a mission like Psyche?
Well, from a science perspective, scientists are hoping that it'll help us better understand planetary formation, including the formation of planets like ours. But Psyche also has a technology demonstration along with it. So it'll be a test of communication from space, the next generation way of communicating from space. So the deep space optical communication will be the first test of laser communication from out beyond the moon.
Right, so we actually have two firsts attached to the Psyche mission, Psyche and DSOC. And once we get to the asteroid, we're going to be taking all these pictures, and then those pictures will be open to the public. So why is it so important that NASA makes science accessible for everyone?
So NASA makes its science publicly available, and we're working across the agency to make it more accessible so that more people have access both to the information, but also understand what we do with that information. And by opening science up to the world, we can do more and do it faster. So when we bring more people in and include them in our science, we can ask more questions. We can also answer questions more quickly. And this isn't just something we're doing with Psyche and with planetary science, but we're doing it across the science mission directorate.
Exactly. We're actually doing it with Earth as well. We have the Earth Information Center now at headquarters. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so Psyche is going to give us a little more information about metallic cores, and Earth has a metallic core. What the Earth Information Center tells us is a little bit more about what's happening on the surface of the planet and what we can see when we observe Earth from space. So we can learn about things like land use and land cover. We can learn about ice. We can learn about what's happening in the atmosphere and how that all impacts people here.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Kate.
Thank you for having me.
NASA and the Psyche mission team love engaging with the public and especially students. One program invited undergrads to share their creative works inspired by Psyche. So let's take a look at some of those submissions now.
Yeah. This is awesome.
That's so
I
cool.
love the way that we have artists and dancers and poets and writers and playwrights, and this is spectacular, beautiful views. There's our mission color theme right there. Yeah.
And I love 16 Psyche is scripted right there, really
with
pretty.
The spacecraft with its deployed solar panels.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just beautiful stuff. Look
at that. That's cool. Look at the detail on Psyche there. Are your pictures going to look as good?
Just exactly. Yes. We certainly hope so. But boy, it's just beautiful fun to imagine.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see that both science and art, they can inspire one another.
Absolutely.
Expect lots of signal, hard to be stuck.
Now, if you want to see more artwork and other projects inspired by Psyche, take out your phone and scan another QR code we have for you on your screen. This one's going to take you to psyche.asu.edu.
Nesse momento estamos saindo da zona de contato ali com o continente africano. E estamos seguindo o rumo então ao continente da questão da Oceania, né, onde vamos ter o contato ali com a Austrália.
And you can see the beautiful grains, and there we go. You can see the grains in it. And this is a mixture of metal and silicate rock.
Yeah.
And so this might be not polished, but might be what the surface of Psyche is like. But it's also, it's just beautiful. People put these on their mantle place and in their rock collections. You can collect these.
You said make jewelry too,
You can make jewelry out of them, little earrings, a pendant, whatever.
That's cool.
I have another piece of space art. This is also a space rock. Let me hand this one to you. Tell me what you feel.
Oh, that's heavier than I expected.
Very heavy, right? It's a sphere that the artist has kind of carved out of a much bigger metal meteorite, and you can see all the little grains.
44 minutos de missão já percorridos até o momento, faltando aí 10 minutos para o segundo ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Falcon Heavy. Estamos aí acompanhando o nosso canal UPTV, aí toda a trajetória então da missão Psyche. Então lembre-se, né? Se você quiser mais conteúdos, basta continuar se inscrevendo nosso canal,
Thank you, Megan.
curtindo,
Welcome back to
comentando e
JPL.
compartilhando.
We may be 2,500 miles away, but I can tell you the community feels connected. And here's a live look from Von Karman Auditorium. Just moments ago, it was packed with nearly 200 family and friends. This is where JPL hosts special events, and it's also where we display several spacecraft models. And there's a model of the Psyche spacecraft that I had a chance to see up close with payload manager Noah Warner. Take a look at why he says you can compare parts of the spacecraft to an electric car. Great to have you here, Noah. Tell us more about Psyche.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we're standing here with a quarter scale model of the Psyche spacecraft. And you can see even at a quarter scale, it's a very large spacecraft. The actual Psyche spacecraft is over 15 feet tall and 80 feet wide. And at launch, it weighs over 6,000 pounds fully fueled. Let me point out a few key features of the spacecraft. You see up top here is the high gain antenna under this silver blanket. And on front is one of our 3 low gain antennas. Also on the front of the spacecraft is the NASA technology demonstration instrument called Deep Space Optical Communications.
Psyche will use a special kind of propulsion system. What can you tell us about it?
That's right. We use solar electric propulsion. That means we gather energy from the sun through our 5-panel solar arrays. We convert that energy into electricity and use that electricity to drive our Hall effect thrusters, 2 of which you see right here. They're 4 to 5 times more efficient than a chemical rocket. You can think of a chemical rocket almost as like a gasoline-driven, high-performance sports car with lots of acceleration, whereas our Psyche system is more like your highly efficient electric car that gets you everywhere you're going on the minimal amount of fuel. Hall effect thrusters use xenon as the propellant. They ionize that propellant and accelerate it out at tremendous speeds. They also generate this beautiful blue plume.
Wow, and right now it's packed up in the spacecraft. How do we get it to look like we see it right now?
That's right. At launch, these 5-panel arrays are stored flat on the side of the spacecraft. And a series of cables, springs, latches, and dampers will choreograph that deployment such that the first 3 panels in line here will deploy first, and then the side panels will come out one at a time after that. And then the spacecraft will start looking for the sun and get those arrays pointed directly at the sun to get full energy. At that point, the spacecraft starts a rotisserie move where it rotates about once an hour, establishes communication with the ground, and then the operations team can start to check out the spacecraft and get Psyche ready for its journey.
So what are you looking forward to on Psyche?
I think I'm looking forward to the science investigation and frankly, the fact that we're going to a world that we've never seen with our own human eyes. We don't really know what we're going to see there, but I think we've got the exact right suite of science instruments to figure it out once we do get there.
Thank you, Noah.
Riding along on Psyche today is NASA's Deep Space Optical Communications Experiment, or DSOC. It will be the agency's first test of high-bandwidth optical or laser communications between Earth and beyond the moon.
In our everyday lives on the ground,
Estamos agora sobre a região da Austrália.
Thank you, Megan. So, Mira, we just saw a beautiful launch, but now the work
Estamos aí na marca de 50 minutos já de missão. Você está assistindo o canal UPTV. Estamos aí acompanhando a missão Psyche pelo horário de Brasília, 12 horas e 10 minutos. Faltando então aí menos de 4 minutos para o segundo ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Falcon Heavy.
This is a technology demo, so what we really want to do is learn, and we have deployed all kinds of technologies, both on the flight side as well as on the ground side, in order to achieve these goals. So really, what we'd like to do is get enough data back so that we can understand, do our models work, how does our hardware perform, and what we can do to improve our operational concepts so that we can kind of mature this technology and bring it to the point where it can be fielded operationally. So that's mission success, is basically learning as much as we can.
Right, we're looking forward to that. And you're mentioning this data. So what information will DSOC be transmitting?
So what we're going to be focusing on primarily is this kind of test pattern data. This is what we've been using on the ground as we were developing the system. And so we'll focus on sending that initially. It's essentially like it's a test pattern, something that's pre-recorded, and it allows us to characterize the performance of the optical channel.
Já estamos com as imagens do estágio 2 do Falcon Heavy.
How soon do we expect to hear back from DSOC?
Dirigindo aí para o ponto
provided that all the
ali no
checkouts go
oeste
as
da
planned,
Austrália.
approximately 40 days after launch, we hope to be getting some data down.
Okay, great. We're looking forward to that. Mira Srinivasan, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course, Megan and Jim.
Estamos aí então faltando menos de 2 minutos
Now let's get to some social questions again.
para o
Jim,
ponto de ignição, para o segundo ponto de ignição.
Let's do it.
All right, let's play the first video.
Hi, I'm Diego, and I'm from Serrano Elementary School in Moreno Valley, California. My question is, how long will it take Psyche to orbit the asteroid?
Good question.
Diego knows how to ask good questions. Absolutely.
Orbits.
Yep. So we start up very, very high as we approach the asteroid, go into very high orbit, and it's about 33 hours for the spacecraft to go around Psyche once, and we'll slowly lower that orbit, lower, down to about 4 hours. We're about 75 kilometers, maybe 50 miles or so above the asteroid at our lowest orbit.
Okay, and we do have time for one more question. We have this one from X, Space Case Sarah on X. What are you most excited about to learn about Psyche, considering how the Bennu sample was so incredibly cool?
Yes, boy, what a great success for that, really for the OSIRIS-REx team. That's spectacular.
Menos de minuto para o ponto de ignição do estágio 2.
Remote sensing, but we will be able to measure the chemistry, to look at the geology. We'll be mapping this asteroid just like the OSIRIS-REx team did with Bennu. So we'll learn as much as we can just short of bringing a sample back.
Okay.
So maybe in the future, decades hence, maybe we will go and bring some samples back from Psyche. But this mission will pave the way for that.
Okay,
12 horas e 13 minutos pelo horário de Brasília.
Again, if you haven't sent in questions yet, there's still time. Again, use
Estamos aí acompanhando a missão Psyche.
Okay, we've been following along with the Falcon Heavy's second stage as it continues its journey
Estamos
out
aí
with
nos aproximando então do segundo ponto de ignição. Ignição iniciada neste momento.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and there you just heard it, and you can see it. The engines start for the second time on the second stage of the Falcon Heavy rocket, now flying through space close to the country of Australia. And you can see it there. We've been tracking it all along, watching the fuel get prepped and prepared to restart that engine, make this burn roughly about 2 minutes and 9 seconds.
Yeah, this burn's very important to get Psyche on its way. And Daryl, as you said, we've been tracking that, and as throughout that 45-minute coast phase, there have been call-outs for different ground stations that have been used around the United States, or around the world actually, to track this second stage. And you and I have been continuing to watch that telemetry, and this vehicle so far has performed very well today, and looking forward to this final burn to get ready for spacecraft deployment.
Those tracking stations that you mentioned, as we've heard them called out throughout the broadcast, also helpful with bringing us this picture right here, that high definition video pictures from space, which we greatly appreciate seeing and are able to show you exactly what's happening. As the spacecraft approaches the northwest coast of Australia, it will continue flying over the Indian Ocean. We will get ready to end that second burn. and then prepare
Estamos
for
então
the big
acompanhando aí o
moment, and
segundo
that's
ponto de ignição do estágio
separation of the Psyche
2.
spacecraft.
Yeah, and that's what Jim and I know all his team are excited about. We are too.
Estamos aí
You know,
no
great
oeste da
successful
Austrália.
launch today, watching that Falcon Heavy come back, those 2 side boosters land. But you know, it's all about the Psyche spacecraft in this mission, and that's what we're very happy to be doing today, to deliver this on orbit and get Psyche on its way. And we are so happy to be a partner with JPL and the Psyche team to do that. So very looking forward to that video of separation.
So the burn about to come to an end here in just a few seconds.
MVAC shutdown.
E tivemos aí confirmando então o desligamento do segundo ponto
You hear the good call out
de ignição do estágio 2.
shutdown, still glowing red though in the cold
A
darkness
marca de
of
56
space. We are in
minutos.
orbital night on the other side of the planet from where we launched this
E
morning.
agora então é só aguardar a marca.
Deploy, orbit insertion.
Aí agora é só aguardar então a confirmação do deploy na marca de 1 hora e 2
we hit our
minutos.
mark exactly on that trajectory and where we needed to drop Psyche, get ready to drop Psyche off, as Jarmaine had pointed out earlier in a segment on the trajectory. So that's really good to hear that stage 2 performed perfectly today, and we're getting ready for this last little coast prior to Psyche deployment. As you can see, the spacecraft
Agora então
right
vamos
there on the
aguardar
front
aí
of
o
stage
momento
2.
da
Yeah, there it
liberação
is,
do
the Psyche
Psyche.
spacecraft attached to the second stage, the camera looking forward where we can see that will be the image we will be looking at when separation happens, and we'll be
Vamos aguardar
tracking
então o
that
momento da
as
liberação.
it goes along, of course. We lifted off today at 10:19:43 a.m. Eastern Time, 14:19:43 UTC time, and we've been flying for almost an hour now.
Neste
And,
momento no horário de
again,
Brasília,
the
12
teams at
horas e
JPL
17
certainly
minutos.
paying close attention, along with the both here in California, or there in California and here in Florida. They're
Estamos
locked
então
into
ainda
this
com a
moment about
transmissão
separation.
ao
Yeah,
vivo
spacecraft
aqui no
team I know
canal
is excited about this
UPTV.
moment, and the launch vehicle team is actually continuing to watch as they
Lembrando que
secure the
chegamos
launch
então
pad
na
here, and
marca
everything
de
is going well.
700
So
inscritos no
teams
canal.
are excited for this
Faltando
moment here.
apenas
So it's all
300
about spacecraft
para
separation.
chegarmos então à
And here's
nossa
some of
marca
that
de
team
1000
at the
dos
Mission
primeiros
Director
1000
Center in Florida, and now you're
inscritos.
looking at the team in Pasadena, California, at
Então temos a
JPL, the
equipe
Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
do
And this is
Psyche,
the
da
control room where
JPL,
they will run
da
Psyche.
JPL
We'll be monitoring the second
na
stage and
Califórnia,
Psyche
na
as they
Caltech.
fly, and we'll be back in just a little bit. But for now, we'll send it back to Megan and Jim.
Really loving those live views
sediada
that we're
aí da
seeing of the
Caltech.
spacecraft there. So why don't we actually, head back on over to JPL in California to hear what's happening now as they check out the spacecraft.
Thanks, Megan.
58 minutos já de missão completadas até o momento. Estamos aguardando então aí a liberação da sonda Psyche.
Our mission support area. There was a shift change just a short time ago. Right now, they're preparing for initial acquisition of signal from the spacecraft.
A
I'm
equipe
joined
aí
now by Psyche Flight Systems
apreensiva
Manager Mark
novamente,
Brown, who is
aguardando
responsible for spacecraft development.
o
Thank you
momento
for
da
joining us, Mark.
liberação da sonda.
Now, you were part of that countdown shift.
Yes.
What was it like witnessing launch with your
A
team?
marca de 1 hora e 2
Very
minutos.
satisfying. The end of a long road for us developers, but then this the start of the journey, that the spacecraft's going to take. We're very confident in how the spacecraft's going to behave. We've done all the testing and analysis that relates to this. There's always a little bit of nail biting that goes on with these things because you can't exactly test that exact ride to space, but we're quite confident. The other thing I would say is that we're relieved to have gotten to do launch today. There's a lot of moving parts with these launches. As you know, we got people in Florida,
Estamos
people
na
here, people
equalização
working
de
off
sinal
shift
em
times. And just
Tasmânia.
knowing that we're launched will allow everybody in their personal lives to kind of settle down. We now know what the schedule will be, going on from here. So.
And what can we expect to see next from Psyche now that it's started its journey?
Right. What's really going to happen just in a matter of moments is we separate from the launch vehicle, and now the vehicle's really on its own. On the ride up, it was on battery power, so when we get those solar arrays deployed, we'll be, looking to basically get to the arrays on sun, okay? And then we'll be looking for that first signal. And the first signal isn't necessarily a data stream like you would think about. Anybody of you that, in your house, if you're looking for your Wi-Fi, you can see that signal, but you don't necessarily start getting, Google and on the internet, right? So the carrier comes in first, and then we'll kind of sync up, and we should get the data coming.
And what kind of data will you expect to see from Psyche?
There's a range of, first of all, I'll say, is that, the spacecraft exists to carry the science instruments, but the science instruments are hibernating. They are off for launch. So we don't really see anything from the instruments themselves. We get some temperature data and, some health data on those instruments. But what we're probably most interested to see is, are we power positive? Is the battery recharging, or are we still draining it? And then we're also going to be looking for, are all the temperatures kind of within safe limits, nothing too hot and nothing too cold? And those will be big indicators of, that we're good to go.
Well, thank you so much for that information, Mark, for joining us today. Back to you, Megan.
Dando continuidade aí com nossos estudos
sobre
limite,
no
limite
infinito. Stage. We have an animation of that right now. Let's bring back Daryl.
Estamos aí então sobre a região de contato em One. Faltando então menos de minuto aí para a liberação da sonda Psyche.
On what's behind it as well, going between the two views. But
acquisition of signal, Hobart.
And there's just a call out that they reached their next tracking station along the path that Psyche is taking. But the big show is right there. That shot right there, Mick, the Psyche spacecraft.
Aguardando a liberação.
Space. We are in orbital nighttime, currently flying. We've overflown Australia, approaching Papua New Guinea, where we are tracking a separation time in just about in just a
menos de alguns segundos.
Stand by.
20 segundos para a liberação. E deploy do Psyche às 12 horas e 22 minutos no horário de Brasília do dia 13 de outubro de 2023. Tivemos então deploy confirmado com sucesso da sonda Psyche.
I'm so excited to see that. Probably not as excited as Jim, who's up at the host desk right now, but that is an
Heavy da Spacex concluindo mais uma missão neste momento.
Right there in the lower left-hand right corner, they are anxious as they see.
Agora vamos aguardar os primeiros sinais da sonda Psyche.
Named Psyche, same as the mission. As you look at that Psyche spacecraft,
SpaceX estão aí realizando com sucesso mais uma missão.
Adapter, that circle down at the bottom, that's a low gain antenna. And that low gain antenna will play a key role.
Agora estamos aguardando
There's two more on either side. So if that one is the bottom,
o sinal então da antena do Psyche.
It will play a key role on when we get that carrier signal that we just heard JPL talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, in all my years of doing launches, Daryl, that was a beautiful
sight. Então, às 12 horas e 22 minutos
I've been able to see
pelo horário de Brasília, então tivemos aí a liberação da sonda Psyche.
On that camera work on the second stage.
Estamos aguardando então os primeiros sinais da sonda.
This as well, listening in for that signal. Momentarily, we're actually going to put up a waveform monitor where we're actually going to be looking at the signal, whether or not we can see, actually looking to see whether it comes in or not. That is a little more inexact because as he described, JPL in the earlier interview, that spacecraft is going to start rotating as they try to lock that low gain antenna to a receiving station back here on Earth that JPL will see.
Yeah, I like the way he described it, like your Wi-Fi in your house, right?
Estamos aguardando então o recebimento
signal, but you don't quite start receiving data and getting on the internet yet. That's kind of what they're looking for from the spacecraft here. That low gain carrier signal that they can know where Psyche is and that they've made contact with it, and then they'll continue to monitor that and so that they can then sync up and start getting the data and then starting their next 100 days of operation with the Psyche spacecraft.
All right, we just saw the Psyche spacecraft separate and go off on its journey into deep space towards the Psyche asteroid. We are now monitoring its progress to see when it makes that carrier signal back down to Earth, but we'll send it right now back to our other Earth partners, Jim and Megan.
Well, Mick had said it. Mick, there was a lot of excitement here when we saw Psyche separate, but now I feel like there's a little bit more of an anxious feeling because now we're waiting for the carrier signal, right?
Yeah, so we've just seen this beautiful
Então, a parte da SpaceX
into its native habitat.
Então foi
This
concluída
is where that
com
spacecraft
sucesso
belongs. This is what it was
aí,
built
com o lançamento e a liberação da carga
let's see if it phones home and we get it
do
going.
Psyche.
Yeah, exactly.
Ação da
And while we wait
Psyche.
for that, why don't we take some more social questions? Again, we've asked people to send them in using hashtag
E agora
AskNASA.
estamos
We've gotten a
aguardando
couple of them, so why don't we show the first
o
one now?
resultado então dos primeiros sinais
My
aí.
name is Santiago, a student from
Psyche.
Pysche Porter Elementary School. My question is, why do you guys think Psyche is a core of a planet?
Wow, these kids are asking awesome
I
questions.
know, I love seeing
Santiago,
kids
that's
ask
a
these
great
questions.
question. So there's three pieces of evidence. One, we can see the colors, the way that the asteroid reflects sunlight. Looks a lot like those metal meteorites I showed you earlier. Also, astronomers can bounce radar waves off of Psyche from the Earth all the way out to the main asteroid belt, and they bounce back and very, very highly reflective, not quite like a mirror, but clearly suggesting metal. And the third piece of evidence is that when we can watch its orbit wiggle a little bit when Mars passes by, or when Jupiter passes by, or when Psyche passes by another asteroid, its orbit changes a little bit. So we can get its mass, we estimate its volume, also from telescope data, and that gives us an estimate of density. And its density, it's heavy. It's not that light granite rock, right? It's more like that heavy metal meteorite, that sphere that you held, right? It's really dense. So we know that there's a metallic component in this one as well. It's one of the densest asteroids we've been able to measure.
So you guys do know a lot about it. Now it's about going out there and checking out to see if your hypotheses are correct.
True. It's still a point of light to us in the sky. We have to get close to it to turn it into a real world.
Okay, let's take another social question now. This one is from Christelle on Twitch. Is there a chance that the asteroid contains water?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We don't really think so.
Okay.
But it might have some material on the surface that is more silicate rich, not so metallic. Maybe it was hit by other meteorites like the one that we just brought the samples back from OSIRIS-REx, which turns out to have a bunch of water in it. So there could be little places on the rocky parts of Psyche that have some water, but probably as a whole, we think it's mostly just metallic.
Got it. Jim, thank you so much for answering those questions, and thank you to everyone who sent questions in. Okay, so to recap, the Psyche spacecraft has been deployed and is now floating out in space on its own. The launch team is looking to confirm a signal from the spacecraft. So Daryl and Mick, how's that looking?
Yeah, Megan, we've been flying for 1 hour and 8 minutes now through space.
E então tivemos aí a confirmação.
I believe we have
Yep, I see
signal.
See the spike right
Tivemos
there.
então confirmação do sinal aí da JPL, do sinal da Psyche. 12 horas e 28 minutos no horário de Brasília. Então temos sinal do Psyche. Vocês podem ver aí na tela. Então temos sinal do
Psyche. It sent out that signal. There's not a lot to that signal. There's no data, no telemetry, just a basic signal that says, hey, I'm here, I'm out in space.
Yes, basically as Jim said, phones home, lets them know where they are, that they can start working to get their stuff set up and start acquiring data later on and beginning that next 100 days of operations that they need to do.
Sucesso até o momento.
Very excited for the Psyche team, spacecraft team. Successful launch of a Falcon Heavy today, and now they have
com isso, então, encerramos mais essa transmissão histórica aqui no canal UPTV. E vocês seguem acompanhando toda essa trajetória do Psyche nas nossas redes sociais, lá no X e no Instagram. Né? E lembrando que se tiver alguma movimentação também a respeito do Falcon 9, para o Starlink, também será comunicado para vocês aí nas redes sociais. Então, nós encerramos aqui a nossa transmissão no nosso canal. Quero agradecer a todos pela audiência, pela paciência, e nos vemos então em breve. Logo depois, então, teremos os melhores momentos desta missão de hoje. Então, fiquem ligados para mais. Lembrando que tem vídeo novo, hein? Então, não se esqueça de deixar o like, de se inscrever, rumo aos 1000 agora, né? Rumo aos 1000 inscritos. Então, muito obrigado, então, pela esta missão de hoje. E, por hora, fui!